Hello, gang. I hope you can all hear me. I set up my fancy equipment today. So this is literally just a video. I hope I put on all my do not. I'm going to make sure I click everything off here. I can't do live right now on Crackbook. So a lot of people have been sending me questions on Facebook, and I did answer most of them, except for all my personal questions. So I'm a little jacked up on coffee already. So I just thought I'd show you my set that I prepared. I hope it's looking good. Morning, Lisa, and morning, Daryl. My eyesight is really crappy, so I'm like squinting to see things. I'm gonna just fix this so I can see me better. There. Yeah, not that I want to look at myself. I'm trying to look at you. So today with Raven, I even brought a hanky for crying in case this got out of control. I'm just kidding. It's actually, sometimes I have hot flashes and I need a hanky. So I have coffee, I have tea, and I have water. Now, most people, some of my personal questions, what do you take in your coffee? Well, you can see the color of my coffee. Oh, there it is. And I like it about that color, and I make it in an espresso pot. So in this cup, I have cream and honey in my coffee. That's how I usually like it. Not too sweet, but just enough. And I'm addicted to sugar. So this is going to be a really informal chat. I just kind of want to let everybody know who I am as a person, because I do have a lot of people in the last couple of weeks. Not that I really care. I don't care about them. I care about letting you know who I am as a human being. And because a lot of people out there aren't getting some solid information from people. So firstly, I want to thank everybody, like all of you. I seriously live in gratitude for not only the people in my team. I'm just one of probably 20 people, 30 people, maybe even 500 people. I don't even know. But my close friends, there's probably 5 or 6 of us that discuss things on a regular basis. I'm talking daily, repetitively. These girls are brilliant, and I'm talking over the top brilliant. And I want to give a shout out to you, Spice Girls. You know who you are. I'm just going to leave it at that. We call ourselves the Spice Girls. And all of you in the Spice Girls team, you know who you are. And say thank you, because I literally couldn't make sense of some of this stuff without bouncing my thoughts and ideas off of you. So I am totally in honor of being your friend. And I'm grateful that the universe has brought us all back here at this particular time. Because what I learned a long time ago is we chose to be here in this time. We picked our parents. We need to forgive our parents. It was hard for me, I'm not going to lie. And we chose this time to be here to bring the message of light and love. So some of the things people ask me, kind of funny: sativa during the day, indica at night. That's weed for all you people that don't know. And it's legal here in Canada. So a lot of people have given me grief over the years for even smoking weed. And I just actually want to comment on that before I get started, because I've never really cared about what people thought of me. I've always marched to the beat of my own drum, been called a hippie most of my life, which labels are so ridiculous, literally. But I'm just going to go through a little bit of my background and my history, so it helps you understand. Try oat milk. Oh yes, oat milk is great. I'm actually flipping over to a whole new diet anyways, right quick after I get my mercury. I've got 2 mercury fillings in my teeth, and I know that's caused me a lot of grief. So if you have those in your teeth, get them pulled out right away. So I'll be doing that shortly. So I kind of wanted to go over a little bit about my timeline. And first of all, I was born in Saskatchewan, in Regina, in 1969. Yeah, way back then. My parents were married the year before, but my mother had my oldest sister from another partner before she met my dad. She was actually, I think the story goes, again, our history with our parents is kind of sometimes, or grandparents, you don't always get the full information because of the shame involved. So I have no shame with my history at all, like zero. It is what it is. We are who we are. And we literally wouldn't be here awake if we didn't have some of the struggles and things put on us. So I'm going to say thank you, Mom and Dad, for giving birth to me. So I was the oldest of my fathers, and my father is the oldest of my grandfather. My grandfather was born in the Ukraine, and that's the one I speak about that was taken at gunpoint, the story goes, and taken to a concentration camp, an American concentration camp. Now, when I was talking with, actually way back quite a few months ago, with Vincent Fusca on my Facebook page, he commented on that first post I posted about my grandfather, and I wanted to learn more about that because he mentioned Danzig, and I don't know enough about it. I was just like, I'm getting schooled by someone, and I'm glad of it. I'm glad of it. And so the story of my grandfather, he lived to February 5th, 2002. He died. I believe that was the year he died, 2002. Yes, exactly 10 years before my mom. And that was an interesting time too. So probably about 2 years before he died is when I started hearing all of these stories, and our grandparents kept this stuff from us. So jumping on from my grandparents' story of love and everything, I've said that on my Facebook page. I don't want to talk a lot about it today because I'll start crying, and it's not about crying today. It's just kind of sharing information. So anyhow, what happened, my mom and dad had my brother here in Calgary, and he is the only full biological sibling I have. And then 3 years after my brother was born, my mom was pregnant with my youngest sister. So I'm pretty close with my oldest and younger sister, and I know they are not understanding what is going on right now, and that's okay. I still love them. We still kind of text once in a while and make sure we're all still alive. But my oldest sister is a flight attendant, and my younger sister works for the government with criminals on a daily basis. So I've, for years, like years. So I've often said to her, I go, I don't know how you could do it. I can't do that. And so she'd say, oh, it's you let it go at work. It's your job and blah, blah, blah. You just don't think about it. And you're who you are. And she's learned to compartmentalize a long time ago. So I love my younger sister so much for her ability to compartmentalize. She's taught me a lot. She's a very, very, very strong woman. So she's born in the year of the ox, and she's a Taurus, if that gives you any indication. So anyways, me, myself, I was born in the year of the rooster. So if you want to look it up, it's, we're weird individuals as it is, but it's one of the most I think it's the most intuitive out of all the Chinese astrological signs. And I'm a life path 3811. Now, people go, oh, are you always, this is one of the questions in my Facebook. Were you always this, was your personality always this addictive, or I don't know, something like that. I thought that was cute. Thank you. And I think it's all because of my number. I was just lucky enough to be born in the life path 3811. So what that means is that I'm a spiritual teacher by nature. The 3 is about communication, connectivity, and creativity, and bringing people together. And the 8 is the infinite number, and that is about administration, organization, and stuff like that. The 11 as the master number, it's a master number, life path 11. So there's life path 11, 22, and 33 that are all master numbers. So if you don't know about yourself, please research it. And it's life path, like LIFE, path, and calculator. And there's a number of ways to go ahead and do that. And it's interesting when you find out yours, your children's, and then it's just easier to figure that out. So basically, since I was born, I've kind of like, I even looked at my baby picture. I was going to have it here right beside me and I forgot. But even I looked at that picture this year and I didn't really look at the look that I had in my eye. And it was really funny because I couldn't stop laughing. I'm like, yeah, it looks like I knew I was just blessed with this, some information that I couldn't quite make out my whole life. And I talked about my dad's cousin. So it's my first cousin, Erica, who was born in Nuremberg in 1947. She was born severely handicapped. And back in those days, you had two choices. You either put your child in an institution or they just didn't want you to keep it. That's the way it went. And that was really hard for my aunt and uncle. So they got their stuff together, and my whole family, like my aunt and uncle and my grandparents, all immigrated to Canada in 1953. So I'm a daughter of an immigrant. So I don't believe in borders at all. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. So my mother, in her family, on her father's side, she has, I know, it's Cree Indigenous roots from, I believe, Ontario. I'm not going to say the name. My great-grandmother, my grandfather's mother, she was such a beautiful woman, great-grandma Weens. She ended up fostering 200 children. I think over 200 children, and she actually adopted, I think, 10 or 17 children. I can't even remember the number of actual kids she had, not including her own. Like, those facts just elude me, but this woman was a mom to so many. It didn't matter which ones were hers by blood or whatever. She was the mother. And she was so funny. She was like one of the funniest ladies that you would ever meet. So the last time I saw her, my son was, I think, my second son was like a baby. So 1991, I think, was the last time I saw my great grandma Weens. Maybe one time after that. I'm not sure. Yeah, one time after that. Anyhow, moving on, but my family with my cousin Erica, having that handicapped person in my life, when they lived on the street behind we lived all in the same region. My grandparents were Mennonite brethren. So religion was at the forefront. My aunt, my dad's youngest sister, she's married a minister, and that's their whole life is spent traveling the United States, living in churches, and they have 3 kids. And actually, I never thought I looked like anybody in my entire family until I saw my oldest cousins. They came into a restaurant I was working at in the 90s, and the lady at the front, she goes, "Oh, your sisters are here." And I'm like, what the hell are my sisters doing here? And why are they like, it was just a weird thing. So I walk out front and there's my cousins. I'm like, oh my God. They have the same facial features as me. So yeah, I get it definitely from my face from my grandparents on my dad's side. But spirituality and religion from the time I was born was something that was, I don't know, I just had all these old people. My Tanta Anna and Tanta Lena, those were my 2 great aunts that immigrated over. They were like nuns. The big story with them, this is really funny, is that Tanta Anna they never kissed anybody, except for Tanta Anna did once when she was 16. She kissed a boy, and literally these people were like, I think they died almost 100 years old. And I knew them like in my kids when they're like 70, 80s and all wrinkled and hardcore from 2 wars, and they were Russian and didn't speak very much English, and it was just crazy. So they spoke Low German. Anyways, so that was my family growing up. Is I grew up in a family that was didn't talk about World War II, but escaped. There was a scar on my grandfather's arm. This is things that we like. It was just really hard, and you could see there was my grandfather was such a beautiful human. Most of his life on my dad's side, my Opa, this is my Opa, he spent going around gathering wood, making people like lazy Susans and candelabras for the Mennonite Christian charity organization. And then he'd donate his money. And he was a carpenter. So we got to learn all of the woodworking from living beside my grandfather, my grandmother, my Oma. She taught us all to can, cook, bake, all of that stuff before the age of 7. So I was very gifted with the family that I was put into. However, having said that, my parents got divorced when I was 7, and that was very traumatizing to our family. But there was a lot of violence before that. My mom was bipolar, and that caused a lot of stuff in our family. And so we moved a lot, and my mom had a nervous breakdown when Elvis was born or died, apparently. And I say that apparently because anyone who knows me thinks that's funny. My mom was the biggest Elvis freak in the whole wide world of Canada. I'll tell you how big of an Elvis freak my mom was after this sip of coffee. So my mom, when you used to walk into her house, she loved NASCAR. I don't know how come she would watch these things go round and around like a cat in a circle. I never got that. But anyways, she loved Elvis so much that when you walked into her apartment a while ago, like here in Calgary, she had a big laminated picture of Elvis. Like, I think it was like 3 foot by 4 foot. And it was like the pose in the white, I don't know what it was, but the white leather jumpsuit. It was ridiculous. But every time you open the door, you want to say, thank you very much, or something like that, or, start singing Amazing Grace or whatever. My mom, she loved Elvis. So when Elvis died and we were kids, she had just brought all 4 of us to live up in northern Alberta. So we went from living in the west coast of Abbotsford Mission area of BC, British Columbia, and then we moved all the way up to where her parents lived, which was by St. Paul, Alberta, which is where the first UFO landing pad was built, I think in 1967. Interesting. Okay. But anyhow, so we went all the way up there, and when Elvis died, my mom went nuts. She literally locked herself in the room for 3 days and just cried. And I understand that pain. I do, because everybody has that kind of pain in their life when they identify with somebody and then you lose that person. So anyways, my brother and I were sent back to live with my dad. And when that happened, we came back and my dad already had a new wife, and she had 2 boys and a girl, like a baby. So here I was like 8 years old, and I was the oldest of now 5. And my sisters were left with my mom. So she had the 2 girls, and then I was the only girl to go back. But it was probably, my older sister told me this, and I appreciate her information. She goes, I was so mad at you. She only told me a couple years ago. She goes, I was so mad at you when Dad took you back, when he took you back down to live down in Abbotsford because he promised you a bike. And I said that bike equaled 4.5 to 5 years of a miserable childhood from a Cinderella syndrome that went berserk, is all I can say. And this brings me to a good point about everybody. And this is where I got to learn my information about how DNA works this year and last year and the year before by going to therapy, because I never went to counseling before this. But when my grandfather was in a concentration camp, and under certain conditions, his body reacted to those trauma and that pain and that suffering. And that left an imprint on his DNA. Oh, I'm getting truth bumps as to why I'm telling you this. So it's going to make me a little verklempt. That left an imprint on him. Now, he did not treat my father poorly. My father was a rebel, a biker in the 60s. He was like, F religion. I'm going to move on and do my own thing. So he, and he went against, and I'm pretty sure that's why he married my mom, is just to piss my grandfather off, and a lot of people did that back in the days. Like, I'm not saying anything bad about it. It just happened. And a lot of people, my story is no different than a lot of people. So those times in living with my stepmother and her children, that literally psychologically imprinted me from what my dad was imprinted from. and his time. So whether or not my dad was treated like he was in a concentration camp, the way the psychologists have explained it to me is when you live in a place of fear, not knowing that you're going to be harmed and you don't feel safe for literally the first 12 years of your life, then you, or even 18, let's be honest. Okay, so first 18 years of my life, I never felt like I was completely safe because of that imprint, that psychological imprint on my grandfather. And then it went to my my dad. And whether it did, I know it didn't happen because my aunt she's a minister's wife. So I've been confused my entire life about that particular thing until I actually found out that it wasn't my father's fault. It wasn't my grandfather's fault. It was the dark side's fault. And for making us suffer through these certain timelines. But these certain timelines are here now with our imprinted DNA. So we could tell this story. So moving forward all the way to when I was 18, I moved from Abbotsford all the way to Calgary. Or no, sorry, I was living up in north. I moved in a triangle. I went from Abbotsford to Calgary, or to the north, then to Calgary, down south, and then back to Abbotsford. I made a little triangle around Alberta and BC for the first probably 20 some odd years of my life. So I moved to Calgary when I was 28, and I had already had 2 kids. Now people ask me, when did you wake up? I'll tell you, I woke up for real in 1989 when my first son was born. I was 19 years old. I had toxemia really bad, never been in a hospital before, totally healthy, played almost every sport on the planet. I'm telling you, I've even been mountain biking, downhill, ski mountain biking, ice, I don't know what, snow biking, that's what they call it. So I've done a lot of sports. So in 1989, when I was in the hospital pregnant with my first son, Adam, and I'm going to tell you why I named him that. I named him after the Adam Walsh story. John Walsh now, who is on the 300 list of the, I can't say that, the establishment. Anyways, so when I found out about that, I was saddened. But anyways, Adam, when I was pregnant with him, I had him in North Vancouver and the nurses were on strike. And so I went into the hospital fully, I guess, in a weird pregnant state. My blood pressure was so high. They said, we're going to have to give you an emergency C-section. If you basically don't listen to us, you're going to have a heart attack and die. I was like, there was no choice. I had no choice. 19 years old. It was 3 weeks before my 20th birthday. And, I was scared. I was like, I'm going to die. And I was so terrified. So I went and had my son, and it took about 5 days of recovery after. So I lost so they were constantly giving me injections into my hips like they would in the old folks home because the nurses were on strike. There was replacement nurses from the old folks home. So they were giving me like morphine and Demerol and Gravol all in my hips constantly. And I was like, I don't want any shots. Like I was trying to tell them, oh no, you're on a schedule, da, da, da. And I felt like I had no voice back then. And I ended up getting sick and, I didn't have too much postpartum. And my oldest son was a dream. I'm telling you, he was a dream come true. He knows how good he was when he was a little boy. Then I got pregnant. I got pregnant with my second son, Matt, and I was living in Abbotsford. And first 3 months of my pregnancy, I was having a lot of pregnant problems. And I hadn't gone to the doctor since, my last pregnancy in 2 years, like other than for the checkup. And it was about Christmas time. In 1990, I was rushed into emergency because I had cramps so bad. They thought I was gonna have a, spontaneous, abortion or whatever they are. So then they tested me and they're like, oh, you have lupus. And I was like, what is that? I didn't know anything about it. And then some of my relatives were coming in and scaring me, going, oh my, so-and-so had lupus, you're going to die. Like basically all that negative. And so I had to embrace them. Like, what? I don't know what that was. I don't know how it was caused. So I did a lot of research then. And then when I found out it's from an allergic reaction, that made complete sense, because when I ended up, they wanted to take away my son when I was pregnant with him in 1990. And I had him almost 2 weeks late in July of 91. And that sucker was nearly 11 pounds. He was like, I think 30 grams shy of 5 kilograms. And he was 24 inches long. That kid did not want to come out ever. And then he had colic, and then he had asthma. So a lot of these things, when he was born in the Lower Mainland, I was concerned about the health. So what I was doing was I'm now looking in not only me, but my children into health. And I never read magazines. I never subscribed to that crap. I didn't really watch the news ever, because I don't like that vibration. And there's an article in Rolling Stone magazine in 1992 about how HIV was spread through Africa through the polio vaccine. And I was like, what the F? So I read all about it because they wanted to start doing that to my children. And I fought, by the way, with the system about getting shots. I wasn't an anti, but I was like, I want to know what I'm consenting my property to be doing, right? That's my kids. So anyhow, I didn't know my rights then. And my middle son had asthma. He would be rushed to emergency because he couldn't breathe constantly. And there was just thing after thing after thing with him in the first 18 months of his life. It was exhausting. And during that time, I also split up with my ex-husband, because it was not a great relationship, and it was very, very negative vibration. Okay, let's just say it was a parting of the ways, and you attract who your people in your life are previous in your childhood. So if you don't know that you attract alcoholism or abuse or any of that, even verbal abuse or any emotional abuse, then you're attracting that later on if you haven't fixed it. But me, here I am, 22 years old with 2 kids, single mom, and freaking out about stuff that they're trying to do to my kids, but I'm trying to work 2 and 3 jobs to just put food on the table. So you can understand that's happened to a lot of people. And when I was young, I went into the British Columbia office, and they said, you should just go on welfare because you'd spend more time with your kids. And I was just looking for daycare subsidy because daycare was ridiculous. They were charging me $1,200 for my 2 little kids. So I couldn't stay home, but I had to work. We could barely eat. It was like this paradigm matrix that so many people are trapped in. And that's what really caused me, like, why are we living like this? So that's in my early 20s. Okay. So after this knowledge and stuff, I've always been one of those people. So I always waitressed as a second job and to support my kids. Sometimes I do 2 or 3. I was a cleaner. I don't think there's one job that I haven't done. I've even waxed snowboards. Like, I worked at a ski hill. Like, I don't know, like I just think that gives you so much experience. I don't think I've spent more than 2 years in one job. You learn the stuff, you move on. I don't know, if you're not going to go up and you don't want to be powerful, then what's the point? But now I understand every single job that I've had has made sense to me now. So I'm going to explain some of those jobs to you. So I have been a IT recruiter, which means I sat and interviewed people for a living, a lot of people. I also had to know, I didn't know anything about IT. I didn't even know what IT meant when I started this job. But the person who hired me had faith in me because I had this way to communicate with people, and I had spidey senses. My whole life, I've known I had an intuition. So I'm a Cancer too. So we're also the most intuitive of all the signs. And that's about the life path 11 too. So I got the triple whammy on each life path, horoscope, and Chinese astrology. They're all the most intuitive of all the signs. So I can't help it sometimes. Anyways, so I've been an IT recruiter. So I have basically, and this is just to be proud of myself, besides my children, I was so good at hearing what people were saying and how they were saying it that I could interview people off the phone and almost know what they look like. And it was proven to me by a place that I helped hire some staff after I quit IT recruiting. A while after I quit IT recruiting, they're like, how do you even know that was me? I'm like, he didn't even open his mouth, but it was just it was so crazy. So it was a funny talk then. And I've also been into the mortgage business. And what I mean by that is both sides. Firstly, I helped my ex-spouse, my third son, who was born in 1999. His father, I helped him start a mortgage company. And prior to that, right before that, I was working as an insurance broker. So I had learned how insurance claims work, how insurance forms work, how to do all of that, read all of that unnecessary paperwork. So I knew IT and the human thing with waitressing and all of that. And I was not concentrating on art. I'll just have you know. Okay. None of this has to do with art. But I was always funny. I never really shared my opinion with a lot of people on how life changed. But in 2003, I went to Cuba. Ethan's father and I split up. And I had been flipping houses too, and fixing houses and living the 3D life of big house and big brand new car and, just trying to help everyone all the time and host parties. And, you all been there before, living the Joneses. It was bullshit. And I know that this is what caused this. So I go to Cuba, I think in April of 2003. And I'm there for a 2-week holiday on an all-inclusive resort at Hibikeo. It's beautiful. They've got a really great reef outside. I asked the travel agent, where can I go that's safe as a Canadian on my own? Because I'd never gone out of the country besides down to the United States. I've been to Disneyland on my old honeymoon, and we were in the San Francisco earthquake. Yeah. And a lot of interesting things happen. So when I went to Cuba, I actually didn't even sign my passport at the airport. She was like, you're going to want to sign that before you get on the plane. And I was like, oh, shit. Yeah, I guess so. So when I went to Cuba, I met all these people. And I already had these conspiracy theories of living in Vancouver area and knowing about the Indigenous community and going missing. I had a lot of Indigenous friends. When I was 6 years old, Chief Dan George came to my school. He was my best friends. You guys are going to die when you hear that. It's kind of funny. Charlene Alec from the Beachcombers, Sarah, who played Sarah on the Beachcombers, was my friend in grade 1 and 2. Yeah. Isn't that awesome? Her grandfather, and I didn't even know this then, but her grandfather is Chief Dan George. And if you're seeing this, Charlene, hi, long time. I love you. And anyways, but her grandfather came to the school. And people ask me in my thing, who influenced me? He was the very first person to influence me. That guy, I don't know how to describe it. When an angel walks into the room, it's like, oh, and that's what I saw. I was just like, I wanted to hug him and I wanted to know more about him. But you're only like 6 or 7, and you feel like a little twerp. And I was so shy. You guys must understand, I had these big Coke bottle glasses, and me and my brother and sister all had the same glasses. Seriously. And I had this really dorky haircut too. I also, my aunt, thanks Aunt Mark for cutting me the boy haircut over and over again. My older sister had awesome, luscious, flowing hair. She still does. And much like mine now. But my aunt cut my hair short all the time. Anyways. So when I was in Cuba, I connected with these people there that were like like-minded people, because at the time when I first went there in 2003, Americans weren't allowed there. And no offense to Americans, but at the time I lived in Abbotsford a long time, which is right on the border of the States. So we had a lot of visits to America all the time. And I'd go to Seattle, which is 3 hours away from where I was living. And they'd ask me, I'm not exaggerating, if we lived in igloos up here. And I'm like, what? And she goes, yeah, isn't it really cold up there? And I'm like, I honestly, back in the 80s, didn't know how to respond to some Americans. So I got kind of a little disgruntled, because it was like 80% of the people who asked me about Canada knew nothing about it. And we know here in Canada, we know lots about America. We've been taught more about American history than Canadian history. I can name more presidents than I can prime ministers. And that is a vast majority of us. So if that goes to show you what's in our Rockefeller books. Anyways, but when I was in Cuba, we talked about all of this stuff. So here we are, first week in Cuba, a whole bunch of people from all over the world sitting around talking about conspiracy theories. It was amazing. Like, I'm talking fantastic. We talked about Trudeau and the guy running the country there. We talked about 9/11 and the whole thing behind what we saw with our own eyes and what everybody saw and felt, and people that we know that were in New York and we thought it was way more, and all this stuff was discussed back in 2003. So thank you to those people, because I thought I was so alone for so long until that trip. Well, a week into my trip, I got really, really sick. So Thursday I went on a booze cruise, and I thought I had like seasickness, but I've lived on boats and stuff, so I couldn't understand that. But I found out I had a fever, so then I thought it was the water, or I ate something. And so Saturday morning, I was trying to dance with this really hot Brazilian guy at the little discotheque. Anyways, that didn't work out so well, because I couldn't even move. I was in so much pain. So the next morning I go to the doctors, in the resort doctors, and he puts me, I swear to God, on a friggin' ironing board. And I felt like I was going to collapse on it. And he's like pushing my belly, and I don't speak Spanish. And he goes, you appendicia, go Havana right now. And I'm like, he's like, emergencia. And I'm like, okay. So there was these two people, and this is how the universe works. I knew one of them was a police officer from here in Calgary, and I was working in Calgary at the time at a Starbucks. And him and his friend were here in Cuba going on a trip, and we just kind of bumped into each other. And there was a lady at the resort who looked exactly like Jodie Foster. I am not crapping you. I have a picture. Her, and they had this really weird story worked out, and it was like, I still think it was her. But anyways, they were at the resort too. And so these two guys, the cop and this other guy, take me to the hospital in a cab, because the cab was $90 US and an ambulance was $200. So these two guys, it was really funny. They go take me into the hospital in Cuba, and it's like 1950s in there. And then they have all of these, it's like it just stopped in time in the 50s. So it's like an old army hospital. So I get rushed into this emergency room, and this lady comes in, and she just stabs me with an IV after the first thing. They're actually don't even close the door. They want you to pretty much drop trow in front of the whole waiting room. And I'm like, whatever. So she jams this IV into me and actually blows out my vein. And so it was just that was the only part about that experience that I didn't like. But I ended up having my appendix taken out. And when I woke up, they told me that I had 5 doctors standing around me telling in Spanish that I had cancer in my appendix. I'm like, what the F? Now, here's the funny story. I'm going to back up to 1997 when I was living in Abbotsford and working at an insurance company in Abbotsford. A man was hit and killed crossing the road. Now, I was the first person on scene, and the second person was a nurse. And maybe about 3 months before that, I had learned to take CPR. But where my work was, it was an insurance company, dentist office, my house. So this poor old man that walked in front of our work every day, it was a total accident. The lady looked because there was a dog loose in the back of her car, like freak accident, and hit this man. So I was the first to run out there, but I knew he passed away and all of this stuff. It was just a really surreal moment. And that was my first experience. Basically, I've held brains in my hand. It was horrific. And, but it was a weird experience at the time. And I went through the motions, but afterwards I had post-traumatic stress disorder. So from my childhood, I had PTSD, and then I had this compiled on top of it. So my friend told me, she's like, you should go see this psychic. She's really good. And I'm like, whatever. And she goes, no, I'm telling you. And so I phoned this lady from a payphone because it was call display. And I only gave her my first name. And so I drove out to the sticks. And this lady, right after, it was about a month after this accident in 97. It was October 6th of 1997. This man was hit. And so it was in November. And she's like, she was reading my palms. She recorded it on tape. And normally I would not believe this, but she actually described my two sons now to this day to a perfect T, my two older sons, and told me I would be closest with my third son. And it's true because there's an age gap. So anyhow, she said I would never tell anybody this, ever give them bad news, but something will happen to you in your 30s that most people will be scared of. And she goes, I don't want you to be afraid. She goes, just know that you're going to be okay. And I'm like, okay. Well, when I was in Cuba, I swear to the creator above, I was like, please just let me get back to my 3 children at home. My ex was with them, telling me, well, I'll stay with you if you want. No offense. And I'm like, please just let me get back home. But you know, the first thing that popped in my head after they told me I had cancer was that psychic's head lady saying I was in my early 30s. Something was going to happen. It was going to freak me out. And I'm like, I'm going to be okay. So I literally, there's only one channel to watch on TV that was English. And it was VH1 Behind the Scenes with Journey. So every 8 hours for 3 days, I watched that journey and listened to Don't Stop Believin'. So as white girl as it is, that is a theme song. Journey is my jam when I want to be uplifted. So that's another question somebody asked me personally. So moving on, after having cancer, I supported obviously the cannabis movement and how that works for us. And we need to start calling it cannabis because that's the plant. And I never let anybody really backtalk me about being a mom and using that as my go-to medicine. And I did lose a lot of friends. I lost these friends who were very judgmental and harsh. And even one of my sisters criticized me for it. And we kind of got in a spat about it because the lack of understanding to quote unquote what we've always been told is the gateway drug. Trauma is the gateway drug, period. End of story. Okay. Then alcohol. And then it moves on from there. So if you have alcoholism in your family, and my mother was an alcoholic for a period of time, you're going to attract people like that. You're going to help enable people like that and all of that. So that also helps you be aware of who you are as a human being. Well, I like to think that's who shaped me as, not the alcoholism, but the lessons around alcoholism and what that does to your psychological upbringing and shaping you and who you are. So I was very shy until I was 23 years old. And I had an uncle in my ex's family, Uncle Frank, may RIP, that guy looked like Donald Trump with a pair of casino glasses. Like, I'm not joking. But he talked like him, but he was kind of more brash, especially after he'd been drinking a lot. And he told me one time, he goes, why are you so nice? And why are you trying to impress everybody? And I bawled. I was like, wow, I'm me. I don't know like what to think. I've had these angelic experiences at Daily Vacation Bible School when I was 8. I didn't know I was supposed to be anybody different than who I was, but I knew that in all the darkness of being beaten or raped or held down or had creepers or any of that early in my life before I was 18, those life lessons, again, shaped who I was. Now I'm forgiven those people for doing the hard things that they've done. Because if you don't, that's, again, your shadow self not dealing with stuff. So thank you for all these people who are like just plopping their crap in my, I don't know who that person is commenting. I don't care. Anyways, so basically after 2003, I had a rude awakening. I sold my car. I sold my brand new house. Oh, I hit a deer with my car. Oh, I was horrified about that. I was driving from Calgary to Vancouver and I was going to the Dixie Chicks concert with my friend, and it was an all girls trip. And I lost some friends over that trip, not because of one girl got mad at me because I wouldn't wear a cowboy hat or a handkerchief. I can't remember, one of the two. Anyways, 3D stuff. But yeah, sorry about your luck there. But I hit a deer and it was a funny trip. Poor deer. I phoned 911. They didn't care. But yeah, after that, I was in the mortgage business and I was actually a funder. So what a funder does is you look at legal documents all day, mortgages, and you phone the lawyers' offices. Or first I was a closer. You phone the lawyers' offices and say, or the people, and you say, I need this, this, and this from the underwriters or the broker, or whoever you're dealing with on the other side. And then you give that to the underwriter. So there was always documents like job letters and bank statements and like all of people's personal BS. Basically anything that you gave your mortgage broker, I saw with my very own eyes, had to make sure it was legit, send it to the underwriter. If it wasn't actual proper documentation, I had to give it back to the underwriter phoned the broker, blah, 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 blah. They discuss the things and then we go from there. So then that lasted 3 months. And then they're like, well, we need another funder. And what a funder does in a mortgage company is they actually take all of the legal documents of your mortgage that you've applied for. They put all of the terms and conditions, the amortization that your lawyers have agreed to. And then they take those funds or the documents, they send them to the lawyer's office. The lawyer gets you guys to sign them all. Depends what province you lived in is when we send the money. Sometimes the money got sent to Ontario before they were registered, blah, blah, blah. But we have laws in every province. So you worked in certain territories. So I dealt primarily with Alberta and Ontario. And so I learned a lot about Ontario and how Ontario mortgages were funded and the amount of just pure white collar crime. Sometimes you're just like so frustrated because you'd feel this as a funder because you were a closer before going, this doesn't feel right, but yet everything looks legit. And so my job as a funder not only was to send off mortgage funds to the lawyers. So I've released personally, I have no idea. I can't even tell you. On average, a month, I was processing 70 mortgages. And I did that job for, I don't know, 2.5, 3 years between 2 different companies. And I think on average, most mortgages were between 200,000 and some were up to $1 million and a bit. I've signed checks for $14-15 million because what happens when you do mortgage funding and you apply for your mortgage, the reason why there's a 3-month penalty is because your mortgage is put in a pool with other people's mortgages. So if you have 700 credit rating and 5-year 5% and 25-year amortization, you're borrowing basically $132,000, $152,000 on $200,000 in that amount. So that $132,000 is actually paid for in the first 17 years of your mortgage. Yeah, that interest. And a lot of people don't even know that part. And the reason why they have to charge you the penalty is because you're put in a pool with 5 to 10 other people that are the same as you on paper, just financial numbers and all that. So they put you in a pool and they shove you over and they sell you to an insurance company, a bond company, wherever it just goes, or investors. So these people are investing in the fact that you are going to pay your mortgage every month on time. Okay. So what they do with that then is that's where it goes through this fractional reserve banking stuff, and it goes through the loop. And your money becomes more money in the next pool. And then the next pool becomes more money, because when we have a whole bunch of, say, group A in this pool, and they all have great credit, and the chances of them getting out of, like, you know, their 5 years, they're probably going to pay their mortgage their whole 5 years, blah, blah, blah. So that's why you pay the penalty, because when you pull that person out of the pool, you have to take it not only from the mortgage broker, you have to go back to that person, and then that person, you have to find a person to replace that person. So it's a paperwork penalty. So that's why they charge you normally 3 months penalty. And if you actually look at your paperwork closely, most people don't even know that the last payment in your mortgage, if you want to own your house outright, must be paid in gold. So that's another loophole that people have not been told. So they can own your house. So I've dealt with CMHC, that's the insurance companies that deal with insuring the mortgage and the fact that you're going to pay. So it's literally the back end, the visual of how that money moved was the most eye-opening, besides the IT recruiting and the interest. So that was done in my early 30s. Now I'm 51. Okay. Let me explain to you what happened. I moved around a lot. I had some boyfriends, whatever. But we all saw that documentary, I think. I don't even know if I can say the name, but I'm going to anyways, Loose Change, about 9/11. And I must watch that 3 or 4 times. I had the second edition, passed that DVD to all my other friends who are open-minded. So we saw all the footage. It was like Follow the Cabal 1 through 10, but basically on 9/11. So fast forward to 2009, I was out in Lake of the Prairies area in Manitoba. And I was a financial administrator and communicator. So my job was to do 3 things, basically. The help with the budget, be formed, take minutes from the meeting, and gather all the information from the 7,000 people that lived in our area, and then test water quality for 3 different things: coliform, nitrates, and I think coliform. Like, it wasn't for anything expensive, let's just put it that way. So I'm just going to take a sip of my coffee, because this story is going to get good, you guys. So there I am, bought a piece of property on the corner of Saskatchewan and Manitoba, but in Manitoba. Beautiful 80 acres, undeveloped. Planned to live on an enviro home. Wanted to build an earthship, all of that stuff. So when I was at this job, I was driving back and forth. It was 20 minutes to 25 minutes away from where I lived, and it was right in the middle of the district. So I'm not going to say the name, but whatever, you can figure it out. I might have said the name by accident, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, so there I was, and this office, I was the only person who worked in this office most of the time. And then there was a manager who was hired, but they just did a lot of groundwork and stuff like that. And so I dealt a lot with environmental reports as well. And I started reading about, I'm not even going to say it, the stuff they put in the skies. There's literally reports in every environmental agency in Canada that people have done reports, and will tell you what's in the fish and what's in the this and that. You couldn't pay me money to eat fish. Sorry, not going to happen, unless it's like literally farm fed off of something that's got a big loop in its chain. But when that happened, I had made friends with this guy named Pete. He's my best friend to this day, my best guy friend. And he did a speech at the board meeting the month before, where he talked about, it was just like 10 people in a room, and he talked about stuff that was going on in the area. I can't talk about what he said, but because it's private. But I said he was supposed to speak at this annual general meeting that was coming up in March of 2010. And there was going to be 125 people at this meeting. And these people represented the 7,000 people that were in our residents in this community. That's farmers, townspeople, everybody like that. So he got up, and what happened was we're at this annual general meeting in this big, huge banquet room, and the Minister of Agriculture was there and at my table, and a couple of other important people. And through working at this, I'd gone to many meetings where I'd met many, many, many farmers. And so I learned about Canadian farmers really in depth. I had no idea about our agricultural industry, or actually that Alberta beef is exported more than we actually eat it, and blah, blah, blah. All that stuff I learned back then. So anyhow, long story short, at this meeting, he got up and he spoke about the water quality in the area and what was going on in the water quality, and how when you spray stuff, then it runs down in the watershed and it goes in the water table, and then it's in the rivers, it goes through a junkyard, and then it's in the rivers, and then into the lakes where we're all fishing, ice fishing, blah, blah, blah. And in that area from 1967 to 1975, more people had brain. I thought he was supposed to speak. So what happened with this room was I got up, and it's all on film. I still have it. I got up and I said to the meeting, the board chair, because he was closing the meeting, like the dinner thing. And I'm like, oh, I thought Peter was supposed to speak. And because it's an annual general meeting, it's a public event, you guys. This is a public event. So he got up. He goes, well, you introduce them. I'm not going to. And I'm like, okay. So they're in front of 125 people that I didn't know. I said, this is Pete, and he did a speech last month at the board meeting. It's, fair to let him speak now. So during the rest of the speeches, the whole audience chattered. Like, these people didn't have really good banquet etiquette when it came to speeches, and they were interrupting the speaker and all that. It was weird. But when Pete spoke, you could have heard a mouse fart in the very far corner of that kitchen. Everybody was like, "Rrr." And because there was a large number of people there in that community that had cancer, in that room that had cancer, I knew that. And so what ended up happening was so weird. I had so many displays. I had Inconvenient Truth, the water bottles, you name it. I was like the environmentalist of the area, the hippie. And I didn't dress like one, like Vancouver people, but that's what everybody just labeled me up because what I believed in. And so anyhow, long story short, I go drop my ex-husband and my son off at home and come back to dismantle this banquet. And the whole room parted. They were all in a circle. The whole thing had been dismantled, but they're all in a circle. When I walked in that room, whew, they all scattered. It was like, they're talking about me, but I walked up to the board chair. I actually didn't even do that, sorry. I walked all the way to the back and I started taking down my displays that the kids and I had done. And right before that, I had people come up and say, that was the best thing we'd ever seen, thank you. Maybe about 20 people. And then the rest left. So that was before I went home. But when I came back, I'm just dismantling this. And the board chair comes up to me and he goes, you and I are going to get in a lot of trouble. And I'm like, what for? And I was mad. And when I get mad, I cry. That's what Cancerians do. They cry when they're happy. They cry when they're angry. They cry when they're upset. We just cry. That's just what happens. Anyways, so what happened is I was trying not to cry taking down these posters because I was so mad. I'm like, how can you people not want to know? That's always thinking, how the fuck can you people not want to know? How blind are you? So apathy back then was high on my mind. And it's nothing to do with anything other than being ill-informed. These people are not informed, period. So I got fired while I was on stress leave. And I had to move. I had to move. Now, that's not me saying victim. That's me. I went into the district where I live to pay a bill. And the lady literally said to me, oh, you're Erin Brockovich. I was like, what? I didn't even know what she said. And at first I was insulted because she said it really snotty. And then I'm like, so then what? But it was such a, I swear that's when I had my first nervous breakdown. I couldn't handle it. I got on a bus and I came to Calgary, and I went into the bus depot, and I actually took we call it the beheading bus, that unfortunate event. And I know a lot of people that actually were related to the fellow that got killed on the bus. And I actually know people that were related to the driver of that bus in Canada. So my friends all gave me shit for taking that bus. And I'm like, I never have fear going anywhere. You're always where you're exactly supposed to be. And I've always felt that anyways. So when I came to Calgary, I got mental help, and I never felt bad about it. I just went and talked to the crisis people for an hour and got my first Ativan and came back home and just realized that, like, my friend helped me. She was great about it. She's like, it's just all meant to happen. I should tell you, the day I got fired, the next day after that, my ex-husband was caught drunk driving with a pound of weed in the car for me. It was for me, but it was just a shit show. So my life fell apart in 2009 or 2010. And so I came to Calgary and got my crap together for a week or two, and then went back home. And the next year I learned that I was a healthcare aide. I was a provider. I had already I forgot the part that I had been helping people deliver babies on and off as a doula in my early 30s. So I was very grateful to help my niece come into this world. Both my nieces, actually, my life niece, Sophia, and my younger sister's daughter. I actually had a dream about her before she was pregnant. And I said, oh, I think you're going to have a girl. I had a dream you're having. She goes, shut up. I don't want any more kids now. It's 10 years in between. And actually, a couple of days later, she was pregnant with my niece, Kiana. And I was the first one to get to touch my niece's head. And that's one of the funniest stories, by the way, in my life, about being in a room with somebody delivering babies. So thank you to my brother-in-law and sister, because I was so grateful to be there. But anyways, so I'd had these experiences about germs, bacteria, and that event with my sister. There was only myself, the doula, and the midwife in the room when my niece was born. And I think that was, let me just think, I'm 2001, I think she was born, 2 years after my son. Yeah. So I was very grateful for that. Anyhow, moving through all of this, when I was living in Manitoba, I actually had a big rash on my face from my lupus. I believe it was from the water quality there, and through the fact that I was driving a half an hour through chemically sprayed, like I could taste it when I was driving. These farmers were putting it on their land, and my friend Pete gets chemical burns from taking the tires off the farmers' tractors and helping them with them, that stuff. And so Hans' eyesight, people ask me, where do you get all your information, or that's BS? It's not. I've been personally poisoned. And to the point where when I was working at a greenhouse in this little town before I moved, this 90-year-old man came up to me and he's like, what's all over your face? Did you get poisoned? I've been poisoned. And there's a big lineup of people behind him. And I was like, holy shit, if I don't have a thick skin by now, I'm never going to have one. So, yeah, I forgot to mention too, in 2000, after I had my third son, because of my lupus, I lost a lot of my hair and a lot of my teeth broke. So I ended up shaving my head bald and going and getting some injections of steroids in my head to help make it grow back. So that's one of the reasons my hair is so long, but it's only about half of much what I had before. So being bald before, this whole thing with people shouting about my facial appearance, I really could give two shits, right? So, but it's funny because seniors have no filter. You got to love them. You got to love them, because I'm going to be one of those people too, with my little cane, shaking it at people and all that stuff. So anyhow, I also became aware of a lot of our laws back then, especially in 2009, 2010 with my ex-husband, and that whole situation with his legal stuff and how it was only about the money when you realize that the actual marijuana that he was carrying or cannabis that he was carrying was for medicinal self-use. And it was, I think, valued at $700. They charge you to get it tested and it costs $500. So just so you know, and then your lawyers and all of that crap. So it's a money game, and it's always been a corporate money game through that system. So I became really familiar with all of that. And I should mention too, in 1997, before this accident that happened with a man getting hit and killed, I had a DUI. I got stopped across the street from a cop shop. And my first breathalyzer that I blew, I had 2 glasses of wine, and I'd been working for 3 days straight. I looked like a bag of shit, and I was driving 2 drunk people home. And I was so against drunk driving. Okay, you must know this. I was like, because of my experiences with alcohol and all of that. So I thought 2 glasses of wine wasn't a big deal. Well, there's things, and this is how I know the system was shit back then. So I breathed into the cops thing, and it was yellow the first time, and then it went red. And we were across the street from the cop shop. So from the time I got pulled over to the time I actually breathed the first time to the second time, it was 15 minutes. The first time I blew into the breathalyzer, my blood alcohol level was apparently 1.6, twice the legal limit. I'm like, holy shit. Because I can remember everything from that moment. When I blew 17 minutes later by law, 17 minutes, yes, what happened was it was 0.08. So in 17 minutes, my blood level had dropped half. Now, if that doesn't ring any alarm bells for you, I couldn't afford a lawyer. I had 2 little kids, a single mom, blah, blah, blah. So I went and represented myself to court. And they basically did the whole fancy thing. And the cop who arrested me had 25 years of pulling people over, yada, yada, yada. And I was a piece of crap. So I lost my license for 3 months the first time, and then a year the second time. And now I know what I know. Different person. But yeah, it really woke me up to a lot of stuff, because it also forced me to move to Calgary because I didn't have means to get around. So for a year I lived in Calgary, you know, doing that stuff. So anyways, moving back to the conservation district and all of that stuff. When I left there, I couldn't deal. I moved to a little town, and 2 hours away, it was my ex-husband's hometown. And I lived in this house that was built in 1905. It was haunted, totally haunted, but in a good way. It was built by these people, and it only stayed between the brother and then the sister and her husband, or the brother and his wife owned it for the next 90 years or something like that. So it was a beautiful home. It had a widow's walk on it and a grapevine on the front and a beautiful yard. And my son was whacking a stick on the tree, and he got a splinter in his eye. So I took him over to the PCH, the old folks home, which was an old hospital, thinking they'd have an eye wash station. They do. So I tried to wash it out of his eye. And one of the nurses there says, oh, you should become a healthcare aide, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I don't want to go through any of the things. And they didn't have the same laws that they did in Alberta. And so basically I got grandfathered in through my being a doula. So from 2011 to 2012, for a little over a year, I was a healthcare aide at a hospital. And I have to tell you, holy crap. Firstly, I love every single person that works at that hospital to this day. They are earth angels. You have no idea, if you've never been an actual physical healthcare aide, how incredibly physically demanding it is. In fact, in Canada, it's the #1 job for injuries. #1, not construction. It's looking after people. You know why? Because when an old person's falling, you want to catch them. You don't want them to fall and hurt themselves. So that's what you're actually hurting yourselves from, is doing a lot of improper lift and transfer. So I learned how to do that. And then I taught lift and transfer there. But the girls that I worked with there, I'm giving a shout out to Holly and Aaron and Rochelle and all of those angels who kept me going all of those nights. Like, kudos to you. And Holly is an angel. So she connected me with this girl named Jessica. And Jessica came to my house in 2011. This is very important to know this part of my story. So she came to my house in 2011 and she read my palms. So this is the second time. So here's this girl. She shows up and she's so beautiful. She looks like she could belong in any period movie of any time in any life. You know, she's been everywhere. She's a very wisdom-filled young woman. She's like in her late 20s. And beautiful curly hair. She's got 2 feathers in her hair. And I was just like, I know you. I know you. Just like when I saw Holly for the first time, I knew you. And so anyways, she comes in and she reads my palms after she reads a few people's at works. And I was just sitting there and I was just like, how do you, she didn't even know me. She did not know me. And she knew things about my childhood and we were bawling. It was like quite magical. And she left and it was so fun, but her 2 feathers were left in my room when she left. So it was like she left a gift accidentally on the floor in my room. So didn't know it either. So that was back in, I think, November of 2011. And then fast forward to where a lot of people had another time hop. I'm going to talk about 2012. So my mother passed away on February 9th of 2012. And I knew she had committed suicide. And I was mad at her because 4 days earlier on the 10th anniversary of my grandfather's passing, I was telling my good friend Marilyn about the experience I had the night my grandfather died. And I've had experiences when my grandparents have died. So I was telling her about how when he was passing away, he was on a table in my dream and he was dead. And then somebody's clothes, you know, weird dreams are weird, clipped the blanket and pulled him off onto the floor and it jolted him to be alive. So he was on the floor and I was like, he's alive, he's alive. And so they put him on the table to try and, you know, work on him and he died again. And I'm like, put him on the floor, put him on the floor. Like that's all I was yelling. And I woke up from my dream and I said to Ethan's father at the time, I'm like, this is the most horrible dream and blah, 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 blah. And so here I am telling Marilyn 10 years later, this story about that. And we're bawling and everything. It's a Sunday morning. And she says to me, she goes, what would you do if your mom passed away? And the first things that came out of my mouth was, I'd be mad because I know she killed herself. She goes, that's horrible. And I said, but when you know the truth, I said, some people, I don't know how to explain it, but my mom lives a tortured life. And she goes in these 2-year cycles. And, you know, I went through my mom a little bit and I'm like, we had a hard relationship and my father and I haven't talked for years. So it brought up a lot of stuff. And then 4 days later, bang, my mom's dead. I was like, what? The first thing I did, I can't believe I'm even not crying during this. That's how you know you're healing. But the beautiful part of this story is my friend Jessica. We only talked a couple of times in between when she read my cards and this moment. And she was pregnant with her 3rd child. Oh, you're going to love his name too. But anyways, she was pregnant with him. And so she came over and I said, I was sobbing. I'm like, can you please come over and give me Reiki? I don't know what it is, but please come over and give me Reiki. And yeah, I'm going to use my tissue now. Sorry. This is so awesome, you guys. So in my haunted house, in the front of my room, I sat there. I laid on this bed and I didn't know what Reiki was. And Jessica turns on her beautiful music and she starts the process. And the only way I can explain it, if you've never had it, is I didn't know energy was this powerful until this moment. And this is what got me ignited for the last 8 years, was this moment. So when she started, and she's a beautiful earth angel, by the way. Holly's a fire, I'm a water. And it was just amazing how we were just so connected on so many planes. So Jessica comes in and she says, just, just try and breathe and focus on your third eye. And I'm like, okay. And I'm not very good at meditating. I've told everybody that my whole life. I'm not very good at it. So all I was doing was focusing on the swirling purple ball in my eye. That's it. And I'm like, that's all I want to see. And I had such a hard lump in my throat because I'd been crying for 24 hours. And it was like tears were just running down my face while I was laying there. So it was just sobbing, but no, you're not crying. You're just in so much pain. So she moved her hands down and I knew where her hands were without even opening my eyes. It was like this heat was over here and then over here. And then when she went over my eyes, it was like somebody just turned a tap off and it was like, no more crying. And I was like seeing the sensation and it was so moving. And then she moved down and my throat had that sharp knife in it that you just, when you're watching a really horribly sad movie and you want to cry so hard, but you can't. So I think the vagus nerve, that's what they call it. Anyways, it disappeared. It was like, boop, gone. And so she went over my body, and a couple of weeks before, I had whacked my elbow on and chipped a piece of bone off of it and hurt it. And she knew about that. She knew that I had all of these issues going on in my stomach. But what was the most amazing thing is at the end, like towards the end of the Reiki, obviously she wasn't saying this while she was doing it, but towards the end of the Reiki, she said to me, she goes, normally I don't do this, but I'm going to have to grab your feet because I have to ground myself. And I'm like, okay. And I don't like my feet touched. So I was glad she asked me, but she grabbed my feet. And the only thing I can explain to people is like I was standing in the warmest ocean. And it was like from my thighs all the way down. And at that time, I saw this lady in a rocking chair. I'm going to do it. That was like this. She was rocking back and forth. And she was like doing this, like, come on, it's okay. And I feel like I connected with my grandmother that had passed away on my mom's side before, Grandma Dunlop. And she was welcoming my mom into that circle. And at that moment, I heard my mom plain as day because Jessica had her hands on my feet. And I felt a hand on this shoulder, like, that comforting hand. And my hair was getting pulled a little bit. And I heard my mom was standing there and she said to me, I'm so proud of you. You're the mother I could never be. And I was just like, so taken aback because my mom and I could never say those words. And the last words I ever spoke to my mom were horrible, you guys. I had so much guilt and I was so angry at her for what she did one night on the phone to my son. Unintentional bipolar outburst that I hung up the phone and whatever. So connecting with her in that moment was super important for me to learn how energy works. And sorry, apologize. I'm not apologizing. Fuck it. Who cares? And I hope you're crying with me because tears are good. I learned that we need to accept who our parents were, because we were literally, in all terms, we chose our parents. We chose this DNA and we chose this time to come here and learn that. But it took me this past 8 years of being like somebody took cable jumpers and lit me up again. And all of these things, these angels that I'd seen and these ghosts that I've talked to in my parents' basement when I was 6 and all of that all came to a point where it was like, I know who I'm supposed to be, but I'm trying to figure out what it is. So I started reading angel cards that year from the end of February, March. I was having a hard time dealing with it again, but I wanted to process it. So Holly gave me a package of angel cards, and I started reading them for myself. And then, of course, everybody in my little community were like, read mine, read mine, read mine. And then I read some for strangers. And then I thought, wow, this is who I'm supposed to be. I really love this part of who I'm becoming. And that's when I was working at the care home. And so I did some festivals and that. And it was interesting because I was setting a foundation and I was learning how to do art at the same time. I put a little studio in that old house, and my marriage was in a shitty spot. And basically I felt alone. And again, I love him dearly to this day. I love all my exes in some ways, not in love, but I hold love for them because they gave me life and they gave me love at a certain point when we're all supposed to cross paths. So, but he was in a hard place. So I just went and started figuring out how to draw. I didn't really know how to draw. I took beginner's art in grade 11, and our art teacher was also the home ec teacher, and, you know, a small town. So I had to do a lot of figuring out myself. I had learned to play the guitar when I was 28. Ethan's dad gave me a guitar. Actually, it's a Raven he found at that's not where I got my name from, funny enough. But anyways, so all these things were making sense. There I was playing guitar, trying to work out my shit and my art, and trying to go through my emotions after my mother passed away. And I was reading cards and just knowing spiritually something was happening. I could feel this time shift. And I didn't feel alone because Holly and Jessica and I would have drum circles out on Jessica's farm, and she's an earth mother. That's the person who wrote The Sapling. And if you've never heard me talk about it, that is the children's book of the future. She is an earth mother. Her children are Summer, Shepherd, and Huckleberry is the one she was pregnant with. Huck. I just love that. Anyways, they're such beautiful angels themselves, and they have all been like, they're farm kids and they know what's up. They were raised like I was. So Jessica wrote this book a few years ago called The Sapling. And the first half of it is all about a beautiful child's story about a sapling who finds its way and talks to a bigger tree. And then the second half of the book is all about teaching your family forgiveness and learning to connect with nature and energy, and seeing ourselves as nature. And like, that is what we need to do, that vibration going forward. So my time in Manitoba, struggling with people who had such racism, and like, there's so many people that have so many diverse opinions, but it's the uninformed, the uneducated. And I'm not saying that to be mean, but when you don't know something, like, we didn't know a lot of what we know this year. So we were the uninformed and the uneducated before to a lot of things. And we're still the uninformed and uneducated to a lot of things. So let's be honest, we're just on a sliding scale of being awake, all of us. Nobody is all knowing. So in 2012, after all of this, and I had actually gone and gotten Reiki, I gotten my level 1 Reiki myself at the end of July. And so I waited my few weeks, and then I gave my friend Reiki, and then I gave a man at the care home Reiki, and a lady, a young nurse there, had never witnessed it before. So I asked the doctor if I could give him Reiki. He was one of my faves. They were all my faves, but he was one of my top faves. And I said, do you mind if I go give room 20 Reiki? And they're like, no. And the lady said, well, can I watch? And so I said, okay. So I went in, and this was the day before I planned to move away from Manitoba. Okay. So it was a very, the day before is a marked day for the rest of my life because it was so fabulous. So the experience that I had with this man, he had been in a coma, I think, for all the old folks kind of go through the same stuff before they pass away. There's the same energy in the room. I tell a lot of people this. If you've never been a nurse, then you might not know this, or never been a healthcare aide. When a life comes into the room, it feels like all the heat and the energy goes to the woman to help bring that life through the birth canal. So the room, there's kind of a cold, woo, but you feel super hot and charged, and you know, like you're, and in death, it's kind of the same thing. And so this reaction that I had, and this way that everything worked out with Reiki actually was so beautiful, especially with this girl. So this girl, I'm not going to mention her name because I don't know, I didn't discuss this with her earlier, but she was having problems getting pregnant for a number of years. And what I knew about myself is, and it's just through my own lessons, is I've always carried guilt. So guilt has kind of ruled my life. You know, oh, I shouldn't have said that, or, you know, I made that person feel bad, or whatever. And so we had to talk about guilt. And when you talk about it and label it like this, guilt is a wasted emotion. Literally, the only one who cares about your guilt is you. If I were to tell you all the things that I feel guilty about, you're like, get over yourself, really. That's what it is. It's all about ego. So I've never really realized that until lately, is that guilt is ego just as much as blaming someone or anything like that. Very 3D. So when I learned to get over the things that I was guilty of and show someone that it's your psychological well-being that covers your heart. So if your heart chakra is not clean or working in a proper fashion for you to accept because you're guilty, you're constantly going to be blocked. So that was just one part of the conversation. So all I asked her to do is, everybody has guilt. Oh, I treated that person crappy in high school. And I'm sorry, Michael Gogowicz, for running down the hallway and forcing myself to give you a kiss and making you scream and everybody laugh at you. That was kind of a bullshit move to do. But they brought it up at grad, and maybe you're happy about it happening now, but I apologize for that action. That's probably one of the biggest bully things I ever did. Well, probably not, but whatever. It's the past. We all learn from that shit. But anyways, so when I got her to write everything down on a piece of paper, and I gave her Reiki, I got her to put that piece of paper over her heart chakra. I didn't want to know what was on it. It's her business. It's not my business. Put it over her heart chakra, and we did the Reiki. It was very beautiful. And I took this little bird's nest from one of the men who passed away at just recently. So I was at the funeral, and I normally don't go to funerals, by the way, but this man was a vet, and he didn't have really a lot of people. So I'm like, I love this guy. So I went, and there was a bird's nest fully intact. So I took this bird's nest with this girl. We went outside my house, and I said, rip that piece of paper up. Let's put it in that bird's nest, and I'll light it on fire. And so guess what happened? I lit it on fire, and the whole thing burnt up. Like all the paper burnt inside it was like the bird's nest went like this. And as soon as it went into smoke, it started raining. And we just looked at each other and cried and hugged. And that was also like one of the most beautiful moments with a friend, because it was like letting your own guilt go, your own grief, in that own moment. You're sharing this moment with that person. And it was beautiful. It was a really beautiful moment. So I was so grateful for that. So one of the things that happened in May with my friend Holly of 2012 is very important to my story. So I know I've talked for an hour and 20 minutes, and thank you guys for all sticking with me. And you can go and watch and stop and start this whenever you want. But I know some of you really want to get to know Raven, and want to know why I'm even called Raven. So other than my other name. So what happened in 2012 was my mom passed away in February, and I was getting a lot of psychic stuff going on in my house. And like I said, I had Jessica Kim give me Reiki and all of that stuff. And then I had these dreams, and I was driving in a car, but yet I was flying in air going like this, and I couldn't grab onto anything. It's like, you know, when you jump in your sleep. But it was very weird. And then when I was driving, it felt like somebody was punching me in my arm constantly and like saying, pay attention, pay attention. And I had a shitty little car at the time with shitty tires on it. And I was driving all over Manitoba. So it was very weird. And when I had moved from getting fired, I had these two friends. Now you guys are going to laugh. My two friends were named Trish. And the way my family distinguished from them and all of our friends, and all three of us were friends. So there was Raven, Trish, and Trish. Now, Asian Trish and white Trish. We would always laugh because the phone would correct white trash, right? So we thought Asian Trish was going to be funny, right? Because there was some stories about how she has overcome racism, had to overcome racism herself. So I was always sticking up for her when we were in some stupid coffee shop and somebody would say shit and whatever. So it was actually kind of a joke that we all embraced. But here I was, I'm driving out from my small town on May 1st, I believe, 2012. And I'm driving out. I had just done a short shift at the old folks home. Or I shouldn't call it the old folks home, but everybody does. But I drove out to visit White Trish. And on my way there, just before I got to Dauphin, this big raven flew behind my car. And it scared the shit out of me. And if nobody knows how big ravens are in Manitoba, they are huge, huge. I'm talking, I don't know if sometimes they can get to be like this big on a post. They're huge. So it flew behind, and just as it was like this in my mirror, and I looked in my mirror and I'm like, ugh. So I got freaked out by it. So I went to White Trisha's house. And we're talking about that. And I'm like, oh, I've been having these really weird dreams that somebody, I'm flying through the air, blah, blah, blah. And she lived in the oldest house in her town. And it used to be a hospital. So I'd slept there before. I knew that place was haunted. I knew there was old people in there. Her cats would go crazy at 3:30 in the morning, blah, blah, blah. It was like a crazy house to live in. But it was fun, fun when you embraced it. But anyhow, so we're there talking, blah, blah, blah. And I had to go visit Asian Trish. So I'm visiting her, and she's talking to me about the higher levels of Buddhism. And I learned about sacred geometry that day. And we just had a really fascinating conversation about dreams. And I want to say she taught me, when you go through the levels of Buddhism, you're kind of like a man, then you come to an enlightened female. She was like, maybe you're an enlightened female with these dreams. We're like, haha, laughing, it was kind of seriously a joke. You know what I'm talking about, that serious but not serious, but you're still learning. So on the way home, I was supposed to drive back the back road to go to home. So I'll just put it on this chart so you can understand what I'm saying. So there is okay, so this is where I was. I'll hold it up. This is where I was at Asian Trisha's house. And I could have gone the back road here to go home. But instead, this back farmer's road was rained out. So I had to go back all the way through Asian Trisha's house and then all the way back home, an extra 20 minutes. So what happened is a kilometer right before that turn off, okay, I come around one corner and this car passed me. And the only way I could describe it to the police officer is it made me feel so sick to my stomach that I almost threw up. And I just got nervous and I was grabbing my steering wheel like this. And I come around the corner and I thought it was a deer in the middle of the road. And all I could see was black and then a little white, bump. And so I slam on my brakes and I'm coming closer and I realize it's a human. And this person had been hit by a car and he'd been out walking. And I was like, and then it was literally the only way I describe it to people. It was like, bam, 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 bam. All these movies of all these dreams were like, it's all happening. And I was like, trying to shut off my car and park it and turn on my hazard lights. And like so many things were going on in my head. And I was looking for an umbrella. I couldn't find, like, it was raining, right? And so I go running out there and I'm the first person on the scene. So this van had turned around and this other lady came running out. And this other lady was the second person was this young nurse. Young nurse, okay? I'm the first person, second person, young nurse. Third person called the ambulance. We are in the middle of nowhere. I'm talking nowhere. We're outside for 45 minutes to an hour, and I have this man in C-spine, and I'm trying to keep his head straight, and he's alive, and he's trying to sit up. And I don't want to describe the situation because I have respect for the family. To some degree, it was horrific, but all I can say is that people are called to certain situations and there was no accident. Now you guys are going to be ready for this. My work made me take CPR 6 weeks before this accident. So now 2 times in my life, once in 1997, once in 2012, I had taken CPR 6 weeks before each accident, that I was the first person on scene and the second person was a nurse. I'm just going to let you digest that for a minute. Okay. There are no coincidences. I knew there was no coincidences at all. No coincidences. So I went home after going to the hospital and filling out the paperwork, talking to the police. It was like so surreal. And I went home and my old house had no plumbing. Like the hot water tank broke that night. So I couldn't take a shower. And I had blood on my sweater from putting it under his pillow, as a pillow under his head. And so I had blood on my pants and stuff. I go to the care home, and thank you to the two beautiful people that were there that listened to. I went hysterical. It's like 2, 3 in the morning. And I'm like, and I don't know why. And like, I couldn't get it together. They gave me a pair of scrubs, told me to go into, have a shower, go wash it off, and then go home and come back later if I needed to talk and I couldn't go to sleep. So that's what I did. They told me to drink lots of water. So I went back home and I was just like, this isn't happening. Like, this is so bizarre, like so bizarre. So I went through the trauma of my mom and then that, and it was weird. So I was coming back a few weeks after that from getting a tattoo with my friend Holly. And she goes, do you want to come out with me to this place by the river? And I'm like, sure. It's out by Riding Mountain. I'd never been there. She got just instructions from her dad. So we go driving all the way out there. And I said, oh, turn here, turn here, turn here. Like I just had a sneaking suspicion this is where it was, not because I was seeing any signs or anything, but whatever. So we get to this location, and as we come around, she was driving my car because I was smoking. After getting a tattoo on your shin, you're going to be smoking a lot of weed. I don't give a shit what anybody says. If you don't, you're silly. So I had my window open. It was a beautiful day. And I'd say this is about May 20 something. And we come around the corner and I physically with my eyes see a being standing there wearing a blue shirt, light blue shirt and pants, but no head, no arms. Well, sort of arms. It was like an apparition or whatever, like a ghost in broad daylight. And I'm like, what the? I said to Holly, who often saw and felt things that we would see together. She was Holly Hawk and She'd go, oh, look, there's a raven. Oh, there's a hawk. And we'd laugh about it. That was our thing. But I've often said things that would come true to even her. So, okay. So I go and we go down by the river. She says, you know, we're down there. And I felt like my legs were going to be swift out between me. And like I almost sat on my feet. And Holly looks kind of like pink. She's really beautiful and like got that vivacious, bright blue eyes and firecracker. She's just a firecracker. I freaking love her. But she's shorter, wearing big platforms down by the river. Funny as hell. But she walks further on and she's got these big shoes on. And I'm like, I don't feel good here. Something's freaking me out. She goes, I'd wonder if you felt anything. I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, well, I don't remember this how long ago, in respect to the person that this happened to, but 5 or 15 years before that we were there, this man drowned upstream and he was washed down. So she wanted to see if I would pick up that vibe. I picked up the vibe. Thanks, Holly. So when we were leaving, right where that man was standing, when we turned to go out, this big raven, oh, like just crowed really loud and scared the shit out of both of us. And then it went and sat in the tree. So we're trying to take pictures of them. And you know how crafty the like ravens are. This big raven, came in and flew and like freaked us all out. So we flew and these 3 ravens were like this throughout the whole park until we left. And as soon as we got out of the park where we could get Wi-Fi, she says to me, because I just made my appointment to get a tattoo on my back for where the blood stain was. I wanted to get something to honor this fellow, okay? And my children at the same time, because he has the same initials. His initials were AM, and he was in between my 2 older sons' ages too. So I wanted to get a tattoo to symbolize this. And she says to me, I think you should get a raven tattoo. And I'm like, okay, I agree with you. So I found the sort of design I wanted. And I had luckily got an appointment booked for June something to get this tattoo on my back. Somebody had canceled and I was in there and I'm like, I'm taking it because this guy's an awesome tattoo artist. Shane, I love you. So I go to get this tattoo. This is crazy, okay? I go get this tattoo on my back. Holly says to me, come to my house. I got to do a shift at 3:00. But come get I bought this new deck of cards. I got this new deck of cards. It's the totem animals. I want to read your totem animals. I'm like, okay. And so anyways, I go to her house and she goes, I'm going to write yours down because I forgot to write mine down. I'm like, all right. So she's doing it's kind of a rush thing, but she goes, pick out 9 cards really quickly. And I'm like, okay. So I pick out 9 cards. And the last card, like they're all face down. And I pick out the last card, but I'm like, my hand's over it. And I'm like, this is super hot, like super hot. This card is groovy, whatever. And so she's reading the cards and I'll tell you the ones I remember. I have beaver medicine, snake medicine, crow medicine, not swan medicine, Black Panther medicine, owl medicine. Those are some that I remember. Now, when you get to your right hand symbol in the native totem, that's your father protective. That's how you protect yourself, blah, 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 blah. Then the day before this reading happened, this girl came over to my house that I had been having problems with at work. And she was a little bit drunk and literally was like touching why don't you bring me these eyes to work? Literally touch my face raped me. That's what I call it. It was really funny, odd, awkward moment, but I just stood there like, so your right hand protector card that was down, she flips it over and it's an opossum. And I fucking burst out laughing. I'm like, yeah, that pretty much explains me. Like I'm an opossum. I just roll in a ball when somebody comes to attack me, but then I'll come out and get your ass when you're least expecting it. So we're having a good laugh about that. And she goes, I'm really interested to see what this last card is. It's your left hand. It's your intuition, your mother protector, all of that, your mother spirit, basically. And she flips it over and guess what it is? A raven. She was like, ah! She screamed. She goes, nobody's going to believe this. And I'm like, I wouldn't believe it if you were Cincy. Like, it was just like, boom, 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 boom. This is all supposed to happen this year. So that was back in May of 2012, like when we knew we were all connected and like we had all this great energy going. And so when I did Reiki and I moved from Manitoba, and I didn't know anybody, all the way to Nelson, BC, the home of the best pot in Canada. So I moved there and I stopped smoking pot for a few months because I was too shy to go ask anybody where to get it from, because I knew the cops gave everybody a hard time. So anyways, I basically learned all about how to come into my art and sell my art. Asian Trish gave me some soaps and she made all these great things that I sold. She made this soap that actually, or this moisturizer that cleared eczema and psoriasis and everything, all natural, like all natural. The girl was a genius when it came to this stuff, and made colloidal silver and things like that. So anyways, I sold her stuff and I had my art. I did the Nelson and Creston and Caslow, all of those markets, got to know all the people in the Okanagan Valley, or sorry, the Kootenay Valley. Beautiful people out there, very community orientated. Literally the biggest hitchhiking capital too. You can stick your thumb out if you're going to work every day and people will pick you up from the ferry into Nelson, whatever. People are so graceful and loving, and that goes to Cranbrook, like that whole area. They call it Hippieville, but literally it was people who drafted the Dodge drafters in the 60s. They didn't want to be in the war. They moved up to Nelson. Nelson is a city built on crystals. And a lot of people don't know that the indigenous wouldn't settle it. It was, I think, the Dutch that actually settled Nelson. But that's where the film Roxanne was filmed, and with Steve Martin. And I have to tell you, Nelson Fire Department, hoo-ha, you are the hottest fire department I've ever seen. And I think it's from that movie. They got a reputation to uphold. So no doubt, do your homework. So anyways, so thank you from everybody from around the world that's watching. I can see Ireland and Holland and all of these things. So, but, and thank you for still watching, all 96 of you and your 72 thumbs up. I know I'm really getting shadow banned out there, so it doesn't matter. So we're all having coffee together. This is my tea now. I found this Starbucks mug on a train last year, and it's the best mug I've ever had. Anyways, so moving on from 2012, I was living in Nelson, and I moved back to Calgary in 2013 because I basically had my oldest son's daughter. I mean, my oldest son's, he doesn't have any kids. My oldest son's girlfriend at the time was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphatic cancer in her hip. And again, no coincidences that my son had been with me and helped the rest of my family get through the issues with my cancer. But he did the same for his girlfriend for 6 months. So, and then he got dumped, and it was very tragic. But I had to be back in Calgary for my kids. So I was with my family back here for about a year, and then I decided I was going to go to Europe. And this is where my Raven comes into play. So when I started my Instagram account a long time ago, it was around 2013. My first Instagram, I had 5,000 followers right away. People were liking my memes. I was like the meme queen and the hashtag queen. I'm not even kidding you. Some of the shit I used to post was ridiculous. I've even gone through stages where one week I do all purple memes, and then the next week I do blue memes. Like I go through like whatever. It was just a thing. Anyways, some of those people in there I became friends with, and I followed a lot of people that had beards. So I was in the beard gang. Like they called us beard whores. I don't know what they fucking called us. Who cares? So dumb. But anyways, I made a lot of friends just from beards and writing poetry with another fellow named Richard. And he is an older fellow who lives in England. So him and I became friends and writing poetry. And in the background, I was also friends with this other guy from Leeds. Now, this is when I became an artist. So what happened was in 2013 and 14, I started posting on that Raven account My funny meme one, just pictures with women. They'd be like naked pictures, and then I draw them with stupid little heads, and I get so frustrated. I'd have an OCD, and then I'd take it off. So I'd already started trying to promote myself a little bit of, that, but I was so not confident, not at all. And then what happened was that fellow that I met from Leeds, him and I were kind of like friends. And then I just said, I can't keep texting someone that I'm not we're connecting as really deep friends. But then what happened was his daughter died. And he posted 3 pictures of her. And the weekend before, actually, I was posting a picture and I was wearing the green shirt that I wore the night of that accident in 2012. It was one of my favorite shirts. And it was like a little Indian shirt, and I wore it with long sleeves underneath. And it's weird how things come all through anyways. So I was giving in the picture on Instagram the Friday before his daughter died. I was like doing this and explaining ravens and what raven in the totem message or totem world means. And it's literally a carrier from the dark to the light and all of this stuff. And it carries away illness and sorrow from tribes when they're going through hard times. And that's why they're associated with death. And so I'm putting this on my page, and literally that is the night his daughter died. And I have no knowledge of this, 0. And so when he posts a picture of his 23-year-old daughter that had passed away, he posted it, and he's in England. So she's at a wedding with this signifier in the pic, she's just gorgeous. I lost my mind, you guys. I swear that was the second time I lost my mind. I was at work trying to hold it together, but I had so much empathy for this friend that I'd made for the last 9 months, texting almost every day and talking on the phone, about just stupid things, our things. And then his only child died. And I could feel that. And my 2 youngest kids were living with me at the time. And I drew a picture. I messaged him and I said, it would be my honor if I drew a picture of your daughter. And he said, of course. I always wanted to ask permission. And so I drew the 3 pictures he posted on his Instagram. And I said, let me know when you're ready to see them and I'll show them to you. And I didn't know anything about it. So I went and scanned them at the print shop at Crowfoot Print up in Crowfoot. And I love those girls up there. They need to be red-pilled though. I love you. But I went and scanned the pictures and then posted them in my digital world, not anywhere online. And then he said to me, okay, I'm ready to see these pictures. And so I sent them through, I think, Facebook, one of the ones that you knew they opened it and saw it. And there was 5 minutes in between when he was, when I sent them to when he was looking at them or responded. And in that time, I was on the friend with my best friend, Star, okay? We had met earlier that year, and we were thick as thieves. This girl was so creative, and I'm like, wow, I met a big creative friend. I can just do anything, say anything. She never judged me. She was hilarious, blah, blah, blah. So I was on the phone with her, and she just suffered a loss, too, with her son-in-law had committed suicide. So I wanted to draw a picture of him, and she was trying to get pictures off of her daughter's phone. And I didn't like the picture she picked. So it was weird because I was trying to draw these 3 happy pictures of the girl. And this one dark, depressing picture was just, I couldn't connect with it. It was so strange. So when I was on this is important. I know why I'm telling you this. I don't say anything without reason. Star says to me, I'm on the phone and I'm like, I'm bawling because I'm nervous. And I'm like, I just don't know what he's going to say. And I'm like, using your crying voice. And I said, and he comes back with the response. And he's like, I'm absolutely gobsmacked. I can never repay you enough. I just came back from kissing my daughter's cold, dead body. And you brought her soul and spirit back to life with these portraits. I am forever grateful. That changed my life. I knew I had a power to help heal that I didn't know I had before. So I drew the picture of Matthew, and while I'm on the phone reading this to Star says to me, like, only this girl, you know, she's not mean. I'm just telling you, she's never said anything mean. She's like, I don't know how to tell you this, like, because we're both crying. She goes, I don't know how to tell you this, but I don't like that picture you drew of Matthew very much. And she's crying. And I burst out laughing. That's all I could do. I'm like, only you, Star. Only you could say something so awesome at a time like I needed that, because it made me be a better artist. It made me I knew that gut feeling. I wasn't connecting with my subject in Matthew's portrait. So what ended up happening is I kept the portrait of Matthew and did another one. And when that portrait got given, serendipitously, it was on the day they were donating a piece of highway to that young man, and they brought it to his function. So I just love that. But what I ended up doing after that moment was I set up a little booth at the farmer's market, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get serious about this shit. So I started charging people money, and I never stopped. And I didn't mean to charge, like, what I mean by charge people money, I worked with people's budgets, and I still do. So, and what I Facebook or Instagram friends. So I sold a lot of art through Instagram. So I could never my connection is unstable. Okay, well, we'll see. Wait, we'll try to reconnect you. That's what they're telling me right now. So I'll see if I get dinged off. So what ended up happening is I just pursued my art life. So when I went to Europe the next year in 2015, sorry, I met Richard, the guy I was doing poetry with. And when I met his wife, Melissa, it was like this sisterhood. And Richard says to Melissa all the time, you steal all my friends. And that's true. It's pretty much true. He does have a few of his own friends, but Melissa steals them. She's from Texas, and she's got the most sweetest accent ever. So Richard and Melissa have combined 7 children, and those, their 4 youngest are my nieces and nephews. So they are my family in England, and they were my support system when I went to England, and I can never, ever repay them more than I did. Richard, his life was about mental health and working with women. And, you know, there's no accidents or mistakes with anybody. And Melissa lived around, thank you, I am, Laura Lee, thank you. Anyways, so there's no mistake. So then I went from England, I went to festivals, and then I went to Amsterdam, and I kept meeting these people, and I got to live in Amsterdam for 2 months. I got to do a wall mural at Club Light. I don't think it's there anymore. It was not a very great wall mural. I'll admit it's probably my worst pieces of art, but the meaning, and I had to do it in a rush. And it took me a while to get there, but I had an experience about a Stargate, and that's another story about Ineke from Amsterdam. Totally great woman. So after I traveled all over Amsterdam and stuff, like riding my bike, and I just knew I was never going to live the same in Canada. I love how people are just so connected there. I love how people go for coffee. I love how people start coffee at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and will just sit there, and they're so social. And that's who I am as a person. I'm more of a one-on-one, you know, I get me in a crowd and I get kind of freaked out, but I loved it. I loved it. So I had an experience while I was in Prague the first time where that person that I did portraits for, we had met, and it was platonic relationship. We never ever had any sort of nonsense, hanky-panky. But we had like a friendship, like that was, it's still like no other. I understand him. I love him. Is it meant to be? No, I don't think so. We'll see. Who knows what the future brings? We don't know. Anyhow, but what ended up happening is his girlfriend at the time, very immature, took the pictures that I'd personally text his ex-girlfriend So girlfriend A from before when his daughter died, ex-girlfriend A from before when that happened, sent my personal pictures off of his phone to person B's phone number. Okay. That girl, while I was in Prague alone for 8 days, sent me my personal pictures back to me through Facebook and demanded answers. I was like, I didn't respond, but I was like, wow, I totally got attacked. And I mean, attacked. I have been stalked for the last 6 years. I'm pretty sure 1 or 2 of them is probably still watching with some hatred. I don't care. But anyways, what happened was I was alone in Prague, and the only person I could really ever talk to about it was Melissa. And then I was like, and I went from Prague to Paris, and then I went back to Melissa was always there for me. Like, I love her. So she is a sister. She literally stuck up for me, not stuck up. There was no sticking up, but she always say, I'm praying for you. And I'm like, I just couldn't understand people praying for me, but good. You know, I'm a spiritual person, not religious. So I don't understand some parts in the Bible and blah, 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 and all this stuff. So we have these conversations, and she's not judgmental, and she's all loving and light. And she was there for me. So when I came back, my mission was to write this book. Like I'm writing a book. I was writing a book for the last 6 years. And the book, there was 3 parts to the book. So I got connected with a lot of different people. This guy, Steven, who's written books here, and he's an author, and all of this stuff started bloop, 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 happening into place. So I was always writing these books in the background. And it's funny because my ex-boyfriend, he's like, when are you going to write these books? Well, you know what these books were? It was literally, if you ask anybody in my personal life, they will tell you, I have been talking since before I went to Europe. The reason I went there to England was to research castles, monarchy, the 16th century, how people lived, what they smelt like, what they ate, literally everything, because I'd had a connection to King Henry VIII and Boleyn my whole life. Couldn't figure it out. Could not figure it out. But my story in my mind was we were in 2 parallel universes. So here I am as Raven in the middle, and then we have the 16th century, say, at the bottom of the loop, with the king being in love with this. I named her Goddess Whore because she was just a beautiful person who'd been taken advantage of and was very lit. Like she was intuitive and spiritual, and they called her a witch and all those things that happened back in the day. So that was the story that I've been writing for 6 years, and how this girl escaped and went over to the new land and had these feverish dreams. Like she was put in a dungeon and had all these feverish dreams, but found out she was pregnant with the king's son. And meanwhile, in the other time frame at present, here Angela is coming over to Europe, and she's mourning that she can't have any more kids. She's getting past this stage in her life. Her boyfriend wanted a family. She was too old. Like menopause was sinking in. So it was completely the opposite of the hormonal connection. So I was identifying with how we deal with it from a women perspective through how men look at us, and, you know, and that whole connection. So my story always overlapped and converged, where we're coming down this mirror, like almost like a rabbit hole or a tunnel. And we hit to the bottom, and these 2 people her name was Anna and Angela, excuse me, walking together, and they're looking at a mirror, and they realize, hey, I'm you and you're me. And then all the people in their lives, like in the Wizard of Oz, you realize that you're all each other, and it's all magical. It all makes sense, you guys. Like, it all makes sense to me now. So what happened last year was I went to Europe with my ex-boyfriend. I love very much. I do. I wish he was red-pilled. I really, really do. He has 2 beautiful children. I fucking love his kids. Excuse me. I've also been to Costa Rica and Barbados a couple of times too. Costa Rica once for a month. My gay roomie left me there in the jungle 2 years ago because he had a nervous breakdown. Canceled my plane ticket to Barbados, so that was a workout in itself. And then when I got to Barbados, the guy I was supposed to meet there didn't like me very much. We had a little out, and I was finding an Airbnb 3 days later. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. So in this story where we converge and we find each other, Raven is the person that's watching this whole thing happen. So last year, more research was done on this story. I'd gone through Italy and Spain, and I went to Greece for 3 weeks with my friend. I always fuck up her name because I don't know how to speak Greek, but I call her Ava. It's Avichta. Fuck, I'm forget it. I'll just forget that part. Sorry, I love you. So Ava, I love you. She used to be a ballerina, and she's 28. And, you know, people are like, what are you doing hanging out with a 28-year-old? You don't know Greek culture, and you just don't know me. Holy shit, we had the best times of our life for 3 weeks in Greece. Her and Hossam, and he's an artist. I did graffiti in Greece, and I live on less than $11,000 last year. So poop on people for thinking, you know, oh, it must be nice. Well, if you know people and you make friends and you're generous, and I'm not saying you're using people, but you're literally, now I'm bringing these people back into my life. So this is an energy exchange of love and gratitude and light between all of us light workers that didn't know the reason why we were all connecting. So Ava and I met in Amsterdam. We hung out for 3 days, 4 years previous, having a blast with Nikos. Like, I love you, Nikos, by the way, if you're watching. Anyhow, lots of friends all over. But when I was in flying all over the place and I came home, I learned that I love my city. I love my city, and I'm so appreciative of my city. And it took me literally 30 years of living here on and off, or 22 years of living here on and off to realize that. But my city is built on nothing but tunnels. I didn't know that till this year. And when I came back last year, there was this weird vibe. I kept telling everybody, I'm like, what is wrong with everybody? Everybody's like, I came off the bus and I took the bus from the airport. Now I was just like, why is everybody so depressed? What is going on? It's summer. People should be so, it was literally this time of year last year, a month before. Summertime. And so anyhow, I ended up getting connected through an art gallery. And when I came home, my friend Star had a baby in May, I'm going to forget up, I think 15th, and Zachary. And so before I left for Europe, I got to meet him for 2 weeks, and that was awesome. And he's my nephew, you know, no matter what, my nephew. And Star's kids are my nieces and nephews. So that's how we are. It's Auntie Star. It's just whatever. Anyways, so I come back and I stay with her when I come back from Europe for a few days or a few weeks, because helping her with her baby, her husband was going back to Africa to work, blah, 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 blah. Best 3 weeks of my life ever with a friend. We'd known each other 5 years, and it was like every fun thing just came to fruition, to the point where she actually found a bench from my favorite ice cream shop. It was literally called my favorite ice cream shop that I sat on in high school. She didn't even know that place existed, and the guy gave her the bench. I was like, that is my bench. Like, so we got in a fight over this bench. It's just funny, like, just funny. But we shared furniture. We shared clothes. We shared sorrow. We shared everything. The last movie we watched together was Wine Country. Friggin' hilarious, because we met at a restaurant and there were so many characters in that movie that reminded us of us. So we just had a good laugh. And then September 6th, I was doing an art show at this volunteer art gallery, and Star came to it. And she pulled what I call a dirty Larry right in front, takes around, cuts off the meridian, goes around the wrong way, comes in, swipes in, and she's driving her 1962 black Humber. And it's got orange wheels on it, and Star's color was orange. So she comes whipping around, and she was hilarious. Her favorite word was whatever. So I'm like, what the hell are you doing? She's like, oh, whatever. Like, she just flew her hand away. And that's the doll that I have in my video with the king, by the way, is Star. Okay. So I brought those dolls back from Europe. I got my friend my niece Jojo there to commission them. She built those herself with her own hands. So it took a year for her to make those dolls, and they were such an honor for Star to get those dolls when it came back. So we're just laughing about how we were going to do the show, where we were going to use these dolls and talk about our plays and our music. She wrote music and played the piano and played cello, and she's a great singer and blah, blah, blah. She was so creative. Anyhow, but we just had such a blast. So September 6th, she comes rolling around, and at the art gallery, there was a girl there who had her favorite truck. So they're standing across the art gallery, and I yelled to the girl, I'm like, don't steal my best friend away. You know, I was just shooting the shit, and everybody laughed. You know, there's maybe 20 people in the room. And then later we're sitting on the couch, and I literally talked about Star and all of our funny stuff for probably 20 minutes straight about what hilarity we had, like moving stuff. Like we took these 2 big suitcases all over town. It was just funny. She was a pack rat, and I have OCD. So it was literally Thelma and Louise in. And so anyhow, I'm talking to her friend, like my friends, and introducing her friends. She was an artist. She was going to put her photos in there and everything. The next morning I wake up, or that was my son's birthday. The next morning I wake up, I go to my art classes, teach my students. And it was the second time I had met my ex-boyfriend's children. I had a rule. I didn't want to meet anybody's kids until after a year I met them. And it was a year after. It was after we came back from Europe. And so I was agreed to it. But I'm going to tell you something. On May 24th, I had text Star and said, I had a horrible dream about meeting Patrick's kids, and I woke up and I was bawling my eyes out. I was just bawling and bawling. And she texted me, I'm sorry you're going through such a hard time, sweetie. That's weird. Well, let me tell you what happened on September 7th. I came back from my art show, or my art students, and I'm with my boyfriend in the car. You figured out his name's Patrick because I just said it. But we're stopped at the gas station, and his 2 kids are in the back seat, and he's paying for stuff. And I pick up my phone because I hadn't looked at it all day. I'd been at art class. And on the text, it was Star's husband that said, Star passed away yesterday. You need to go to the house yesterday morning. And I'm like, yesterday morning? I saw her last night. I'm like, what the I don't understand. But again, he's in Africa and the time difference. So it was like, bam, 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 bam. Those dreams from May 24th came true. There was the 2 kids in the back, and I knew I could touch them. That's how I described them to Star. I said, they were right there. I knew who they were. I couldn't see their faces, but I knew what they looked like already. And so it was really surreal driving over to Star's house and having to see her family. And I was very close with her family and her mother. I lived there for 3 weeks. That was my mailing address, actually. And half my furniture was over in her house. So it was very traumatizing to me to lose the person who I was very, very close with when I needed her to be, I guess. And there's no coincidences. So after that, I got kind of sick. Like, I had a tooth infection, and everybody goes, what did she die from? Well, here's the kicker. At the end of November, we had a Star family tribute for our party. Like, we always had a pre-Christmas on the end of November, around November 25th, because I don't like Christmas. And I don't like what it makes people depressed and all that crap. So, and the whole commercialism, blah, blah, blah. And anyways, so we had the year before, Star had come over for dinner on November 25th, and we played Cards Against Humanities. Oh my goodness. First of all, my daughter-in-law is from Taiwan, and my other daughter-in-law is Spanish. Her parents are from Mexico, but she's American. And so some of the cards that came up, we were literally crying in laughter. Because the kid who got the what keeps me up at night, my other kid responded back with a hardworking Mexican. Now, how can you not laugh at that in tears? So some of the things that were discussed that night Star didn't even know what they were about. So, because she was kind of naive to some things. And so is my daughter-in-law from Taiwan. She's like, what does that mean? And so is the one from the Spanish. So that was more of the funny thing, was trying to explain all of these things. And one of them we had to explain. So we're all adults, by the way. There was my boyfriend, Star, and myself. And then all of my kids had their spouses. So there's 9 of us. So one of the girls goes, well, what's a bukkake? Is that a car? And honestly, if you don't know what it is, look it up. You'll be grossed out. But holy, if we didn't all like just, I can't even look at a Ducati anymore without thinking of that word. So it's so funny. Anyhow, so Star's Christmas came last year, and we were celebrating the fact that our family was just honoring her. It was our way of honoring Star and doing our normal Christmas thing, you know, so we could get together with so we don't have to worry about it, in-laws. So I got a tooth infection, and my whole head started swelling up later that night, this last November. So I go to emergency on a Sunday downtown here to the clinic. It's not really a hospital. It's like emergency services type thing, but it's where a lot of homeless and people who are addicted to drugs. I think there's an addiction center there, whatever. It's a great place to help people. And so I go in there, and I'm just like in so much pain. And they go and give me, check me out. And like, I'm just this is the second time I'm doing this year. And, I go in there, and the lady at the desk tells me this. Yeah, 1% of all Albertans die of sepsis. And I was like, I'm like, this is crazy. She goes, no, it's a good thing you're here. She goes, my best friend's son just died a little while ago. He's in his 20s of a tooth infection. And I was like, I bet you that's what Star passed away. I don't know what she passed away from, and I'm not disrespecting what she passed away from. I don't care. So I was just like, of course, my anxiety was through the roof. I got put on antibiotics. They pulled 2 teeth. One of them was my front tooth, the one I broke snowboarding years before, and had a root canal and whatever. But I was in so much delirious pain. And then right after that, after I got off my antibiotics, so I'm on like trying to figure out my own health, all this stuff with the China and all of that crap was coming out. So what I'm doing, bored, looking up this and, you know, the 7th letter of the alphabet. And so I'm like, why are these people getting pulled from their homes? Are they whistleblowing again? And like, I'm freaking out back in October and November. So I'm already researching what's going on in WUHAN. I'm already knowing that the police games were there. I'm already knowing the towers were there. I'm already knowing some of this stuff. But trying to talk to my boyfriend about it was not really something we talked about at the time. But bring back to January when we started living together and we were watching Humalian videos, okay? People who thought they had sex with humans or aliens, and now they give away their babies. And then on, I'd say February sometime, one of my friends, Ria, sent me Follow the Cabal 1 through 10. And my boyfriend and I were fighting at the time. I hadn't lived with anybody for 8 years. It was very chaotic. It was the house energy, I'm 99% sure. But she sent me that, and I literally sat through it 2 times, 6 hours, crying and going, I fucking knew it. I fucking knew it. And I was so mad that the minute I was watching it the second time, I was taking notes. I'm researching this shit on my own, because all the things that I knew from all my research before literally was like someone put me in a room with all of the files and gave me permission to say, you can talk about this stuff now. You're not fucking crazy. And I was like, I cried because I felt crazy for so long. So in January and February, my mental health before this happened was so dark, because the story I'm going to tell you has to do with, I think, the dark fucking with the light workers. On September 15th, There's a whole bunch of things that happened in between Star's death and this date. And they were very symbolic. They had to do with 222. And Star's favorite number was 222. Her Instagram was 222. The three middle numbers of my social insurance number are 222. So it's been weird anyhow. And I don't care if you know what my social insurance number is, because my credit's shit anyway, so whatever. And it's unhackable soon. Anyhow, so all these things started happening. Well, I came to get iPod cord for Star's daughter, and I was walking around the C train, and I had my headphones off, and I always walk around with my headphones on. Always, always, always downtown. I don't like the sounds and the energies. I like to try and stay in my own vibe. And I hear this, like, I look up to see the train because I'm going over to the art gallery, and it's not my train. So I put my head down like this, and I look up again because I was going to walk into this post like an idiot. And I was pulling my headphones out of my bag. And just as I was looking up, I looked over like this to see a guy do this and rocked himself in between the first and second train and got dragged. Yes. I screamed, "Stop! No, 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 no." And I really hadn't, I don't think, processed it all. And I fell down on the street and collapsed. I could not believe this happened in front of 200 people, women and children. And I'm like, oh, why did this guy do this? Like, and then I started reading Reddit, and I had to read every horrible thing. I found out that guy escaped the hospital wearing a coat, whole gown, hospital tag, and he had been given a jaywalking ticket an hour before. So he escaped the hospital at like 2 or 3 in the morning. I walked out, and then at 2 in the afternoon, he got in a ticket, 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and then at 2:20 sometime ish, he perished. And I phoned my boyfriend at the time, and I was crying. He couldn't even understand a word I said. And that really, I think, is another thing that caused the illness to happen. So my mental well-being was rocked to the core. It brought up every single thing. And it forced me from October or September 15th to January, February to literally use the crisis line at least once a week, sometimes 3 times a week, because I couldn't stop crying. I just didn't want to cry on my friend's shoulders. I didn't want to cry to my boyfriend. And most people don't understand that when you're in that spot, and when you're in that spot, all you want to do is disappear. You don't want to commit suicide. You don't want to do that to your family. You just want it to disappear. So it wasn't until I acknowledged how painful the process of life is, and everything started to make sense as soon as I watched The Fall of the Cabal. When I saw, and you guys all know this too, you can attest to it. When I saw the very first picture of that child with its face cut up from the tunnels, my PTSD went away. And I was like, fuck all you motherfuckers. Literally, fuck all you motherfuckers. I became so angry because those dreams that I'd been having and telling the psychologist, I'm in a tunnel, I feel like I'm in the movie Saw, and all of this stuff, and I can't get away, and I'm running and running. I didn't realize that's my former life. That's what I'm doing when I'm asleep. That's what they're doing to us. And they put this darkness on us. And none of this story, you guys, is to make you feel like I'm a victim. I have never fucking felt like a victim, ever. I'm saying this so there's an understanding to the quality of information and why I'm telling you this because I've had a hard time dealing with doctors and all this information and government stuff and the corporations trying to keep you down, trying to keep you down. So, and seeing how they've snowed out, you know, humans in care homes and things like that. When I saw that picture and I started researching, people want to know, like, how did I come to this mind mapping? The only way I can tell you is I had to write it down to absorb it. I had to write it down so I could own it. I had to write it down so I could start putting the blocks, like the star goes in the star, the circle goes in the circle. Instead of trying to jam a star into the circle all of this time with our thoughts, it was making sense to me. So I watched, when I knew the Queen was responsible for some stuff, I watched a lot of her videos. And going back to the 10 missing children in Kamloops. From that, after I watched Follow the Cabal, I probably watched about 20 videos that had to do with William Coombs. And the whole incident, I listened to his testimony on the radio. He was supposed to go on trial. He was one of the children that witnessed the 10 missing children. And I think part of my struggle, my whole life, has been this. We've been judged based on the shade of our toast, number one. I've been called white girl, white privilege, white everything, you name it. I'd like to know where that card comes into play. I'm ready. Bring it on. Bring it on. I've literally tried to be as loving as I can when I've been knowledgeable. My dad was a racist. I'm not going to lie. A lot of the reasons I don't talk to my father because he was like that, and I cannot talk to that energy. That's just whatever. So I've distanced myself from that. And so my guilt over my grandfather being in a concentration camp, being a NAZI, not really by choice, but an interpreter, potato peeler, you name it. The struggles of my poor white trash family, and we're no different than a lot of other people. A lot of people don't talk about the things that have happened in their life. So when I was watching these things from William Coombs, and I could identify why people are so jaded, because we've been brainwashed to believe that the corporation of the Canadian government is there to help us out and monitor our money and all of that. They have done nothing but separate and divide us based on trying to make us feel guilty about the shade of our toast, and people don't know how they've done it. So I'll give you an example. I call it, my friend calls it victim bear, but it's a perfect way to say this. So victim bear is someone who feels sorry for themselves and tells their story over and over in kind of a negative way and makes you feel guilty about what's happened or something like that, I think. So lately I've had an Indigenous man basically force his respect on me. And he said it in a way that was very prejudiced. And the only way I had to really think about this incident, because he was being a victim bear. He talked about, well, if I was white, I would get a better job. And the whole time he was talking, I thought, it's your attitude and the vibration of your voice carrying. Like, if you're really representing elders and respect, then respect the vibration in which our heart carries the information. So I think that's our biggest challenge right now with a lot of people, is getting over the hump of what our lives we've been taught to believe through either oppression from our establishment and our schools. Like, I have many friends that were in res schools. In fact, when I lived in Mission, I lived just down the hill from the Westminster Abbey. And I can guarantee you that cross up there has probably at least 100 bodies that I used to speak to on a regular basis when I was a child, maybe 2 kilometers under the ground from where I lived. These kids that got stolen and taken from the residential schools, basically society in Canada has made people, oh, like, who cares? They just want more money, you know, they're just going to blow it or drink it away. That is an uneducated, racist thing to say. If you stop and talk to many Indigenous addicted people, like I have on the street, and say, hey, sister, I love your hair, and get into conversation with them, you'll find out those people know exactly what lizard breath was. Exactly. They will tell you their dreams, their darkness, their stories. So that is the number one thing people need to know. William Coombs and every Indigenous person that has spoken out against any of these atrocities in Canada, Highway of Tears, the Picton Pig Farms, anything like that, has been put with addictions, put through the system, stopped from talking, or silently put to death a week before their trial, like William Coombs in a Catholic hospital. Suicide. So the more you open your eyes to around what's going on, it kind of helps fill in the blanks. So after Fall of the Cabal, when I started doing all of this writing, it was like all of my experience and all the people that I'd started meeting up with was like this wheel, a clock, a beautiful clock of time and love and patience. And the biggest thing that I ever felt was, why didn't I know about this sooner? I knew human trafficking was a problem. I watched Weeds. I felt sorry for the girl in the tunnel. Go by through every videos and shows you guys have ever watched, and I guarantee you there's so many signs and symbols. So when I uncovered that the queen was a fraud, I could not be happier. Now, the rest of the story needs to be told, but that's left for another video, for real. So more on information and sharing later. But all of my charts have come from what rings through in my vibration through those experiences. So those experiences and every one of the people that I've met with their own experiences, that's how come we're all now coming together. That is how come we're all coming to this magical time for the Great Awakening. It is through no accident whatsoever. It isn't. It's by divine intervention. I did not believe in Satan like a thing. I just thought it was literally a bunch of a-holes running around on the planet doing really a-hole things. When you wake up to the realm of the earth that we are living in, and actually this is a galactic 1,000-year-old battle we are coming to the pinnacle of. It's amazing. That's the only way I can say it. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. And I can't be any more grateful for everyone who shows up to the rally here in Calgary. Oh my Lord, yesterday was awesome. We made a heart shape with a drone. We all got in a heart shape, had a big group hug. We stood up for the people who died on 9/11, all the Iraqis, all the Afghani people since then, and all the US soldiers and civilians, everybody. We honored them the way we could honor them in Canada. So the whole purpose of this video today, and thank you, oh my shit and God, I can talk a long time, is to let you know who Raven is. So a lot of people don't like me. That's okay. I'm not offended. I've literally had an attitude since I've been about 20 something. What you think about me is none of my business. It just isn't. Because if I let that affect who I am as a person, I'd be like, But some of the interesting things I will tell you is that last year when I was in Germany, I met this lovely girl named Marlene. I love you still. Had to block you a little bit on Facebook because you called me crazy. for saying Gates was worse than Hitler. Okay. So when I was in that town last year, she works at a museum. She took me around the town. Both my boyfriend and I took me around the town and showed me these buildings and statues. Every building, every story, and every statue had to do with the same thing. Satan. And I was like, you guys really love these creepy stories here. And she just kind of laugh about them. For example, there's one serpentine statue they put over like where water comes up red from the earth. Now this really grosses me out now saying this, but it looked apparently like blood, but it was rusty water or some crap like that. I don't know. Anyways, it's where these Turkish baths and all these things are all over that area. So anyhow, she's like, yeah, this statue here. And I'm like, yeah, totally scary. She goes, well, this one, the story with that is basically if men are out drinking at night, it scares you into going home so you don't get stolen from the streets. I was like, holy shit. Yeah. Wow. Is all I gotta say. But what I've learned, I've literally seen some of the most beautiful and scary things with my life. I've stood on the most beautiful and scary places in the planet. And I couldn't be any more grateful. Literally every place I've been has with purpose and intention. And these are all the places that I'm going back now. Greece, Costa Rica, Barbados. I want to set up healing centers and correspondence so we can start educating people to everything that we've been going on to. I know my purpose now is to be, I just make this joke all the time. I want to be like the white good Oprah, one day, who goes around and gives people shit and interviews just regular people, humans, and, learns their story, learns the true history, the true actual history from elders and generations. That's what I want to be. I want your stories. You've heard my story. I've talked my cheeks off. Oh, it's 88-101. Yay. So I've talked my cheeks off for a long time, but my whole purpose moving forward with my information and what I can give to you and how I can help you guys. First of all, later this afternoon, I'm going on a new channel. She's starting it. My friend is doing Triggered Happy. And we're going to be talking about mental health, how we all got started in this and stuff. We need to change the paradigm. So I share a lot of stuff and I'm on a fine line on Facebook. So that's fine. But I'm trying to I'm on Signal right now. I'm on Telegram. I'm on Parler. I don't really get that thing. And I'll be doing my redpillraven.com. So the other good news, and I'll put this at the beginning of my next post, I think, is September 25th or October 3rd. We may be able to have that party where we thought we were going to. So we've got some people that have volunteered, not only to help clean it out, but to, it's not really about, I guess, as bad as I thought it was. I'm OCD, okay? I've got some severe issues. I know that. Also, I must tell you, I have a little bit of Asperger's, so we won't get into that. I tend to interrupt people when I'm on a thought, and I got some other things that I have problems with, like the fact that I keep rolling my napkin or my whatever. Anyways, but we all have our little picadillos. So I want you guys to all go back and in your own space and thoughts and find out, how you can work with yourselves. I'll go back to the beginning when I said your life path number. When I figured out that I was supposed to be an artist, a poet, a writer, a spiritual teacher, an inspirational person, it kind of made sense to me. Like the number 3 is all about live, love, laugh. Really, that's what it is, Karen. Live, love, laugh. Please don't put that on your house. It's like a bad tattoo. Anyways, but I really want people to explore who is in their heart, and maybe how my story will help you uncover some more truths. Like, hey, yeah, remember when I watched that movie? Literally, I swear to God, all the movies that I've watched, or even any TV show, I have watched every episode of Forensic Files. Everyone. My favorite episode, I'll tell you all right now. So weird. So a poor woman gets killed in dumped in her body in the desert, I'll say. And then the guy that kills her, gets stuck in the ditch. Calls his buddy. His buddy gets stuck in the ditch. Third person gets stuck in the ditch. The fourth person comes out, it's a tow truck driver. His wife calls in the middle of the night, goes, "Where the hell are you?" And he's like, "I'm moving trucks out of the ditch." And she's like, "Bullshit." He got all mad and he threw his phone, and it went flying. So near the body, they found the tow truck driver's phone. And had they not found that phone and the bitchy wife, they never would have found out who killed that person in the first place. So whether or not that was a psyops, I'm just like, got to check every angle. You got to check all the bloodlines, all the money, all the financial information. And I should tell you too, that lots and lots of people have come forward and literally hand delivered me messages saying, "I need your help. I've been trapped by this person. I've been held in this country for this long." You would not believe it. And I will give my honor right now and let you know that Star's purpose in life for the last 10 years was to help a Polish woman get her children back. Number one. Her brother, who apparently committed suicide the year before, I don't think was a suicide. They found a handkerchief around his neck because he was trying to break a drug home or some crap like that. I don't know the exact story. So Star went to her grave thinking that was a sham, her brother's death. And it's just weird because there was a thing that happened in Greece that happened at home, and we met together on the same page with the same picture of a fox. It was really bizarre, but it was weird. Like, so I really implore everybody to kind of look through their own history and know that everything happens for a reason. Every single thing on this planet happens for a reason. Everything. I've left out some personal stories in respect to a couple of friends. Like, I've had a couple of other friends commit suicide in the last couple of years. And it's never easy. It never is easy. But what I've learned now, even about Star, is I don't mourn her like I used to. And it's not because I love her any less. It's because I know she's a baby right now on this planet, and either somebody's stomach. Who knows? Maybe it was the lady that I talked to the other day in the park that was so beautiful. I was just like, oh, you don't know where these people are going to come out in corona babies or whatever, So she's being born. She's been reborn on this planet. And that's the way I look at my mom and everybody else who's passed. They're with us in this energy we can't see between the camera and me and the air and the space, because that's just the way it is. And the new way going forward is all about the biometrics and our intentions and our karma and what we've done good on the earth. So my argument my whole life with people, and this is just a religious argument, and it's not to instill a religious conversation. Please, this is not what I'm getting at this for. But I always knew reincarnation was a thing. I always knew that. So my whole thing with my religious friends is I'm like, okay, so I don't understand this. If God is who he says in the Bible, who says is all, great and loving and all this stuff, why, if I don't accept Jesus, won't I get into heaven? And my friend explained it. Well, you don't go to a grocery store and walk out with the groceries, and I'm like, I didn't get that analogy, but my whole thing with now knowing is that it's not necessarily God judging us. It is our karma coming to fruition when we pass. Are you a good human being? Are you going to leave this earth and come back into the same spot that you're coming back in? If you are a bad person, you're going to be in a revolving, spinning psychological hell, I swear. It's like, Hillary, can I get you fries with that? And all this place is lovely and everybody's happy and she doesn't want to be happy. So that's the opposite, like The Good Place on Netflix. That's a perfect example. So what I'm saying is, when you learn that there is more to life after death, then the only judge of your life is you. So if you're right now standing or sitting here listening to me drinking your coffee on a Sunday morning like a good documentary, or you're scrolling or whatever, then you're going to find connection and connectivity. There's a reason that you're sitting here, right? So you're waking up, I'm waking up, we're coming together into just a completely different time spot. And life is not measured by, yes, life is not measured by the breath you take, but the moments that take your breath away. That is inclusive of the times you cry with friends, the times you heal with friends, the times you laugh with friends, and the times that you just are silent with friends. And sometimes it's the silence that's the best place to be, because we're within ourselves and we're within each other. So I hoped this coffee chat, I'm a little weepy right now and I need a smoke. It's been 2 hours and 45 minutes in between my smokes, you guys. So I will tell you, but all the truth people are coming together. I'm going to give a shout out and tell you guys to go all like and subscribe to Rice Crypto's channel. That guy, thank you to my friend who connected us. But I will be talking with probably, hopefully, him this week at a round table. I'm supposed to be going on vacation. My friend's driving out from Manitoba, Pete. And we're supposed to be going doing some drone work and all of that stuff. And I've got to do some charts. I'm still trying to get my party together. September 25th or October 3rd is going to be a dead celebrity party here in Calgary. And the venue is freaking unbelievable. So if you want to come, find some friends. If you don't live in Calgary, find your way down here. It's going to be a night of education, dancing, laughing. I'm pretty sure you can even bring roller skates or rollerblades, because the place is that big. So it'd be kind of fun if somebody came as like Roller Girl from Boogie Nights, you know, like Heather Graham's character. There's somebody who could be dressed up as. I still don't know who I'm going as. I've had a lot of ideas. I've had the girl with from the Hunger Games with the big blonde hair and foofed up, because I thought was the complete opposite of me. I don't know. We're having those whole discussion. But I think that night when I have my party, everybody out there in YouTube land and Facebook land and Instagram land all should literally dress themselves up like a celebrity. Anyone, doesn't matter, because they're all just meat suits at this point. Robotic meat suits. Dress themselves up as somebody that may have inspired them in the dark life and will own it in this life. Because that's how we're going to overcome the darkness, is surrounding this darkness in light. And that's how I get through it all. And that's what Triggered Happy is going to be about, is fixing this. So I'm not going to talk too much about that now, but I just really, really, Rowan, I just was about to get up and get a coffee. I love you. I still got my cold coffee here, but I love cold coffee. I don't care. And I almost was, if nobody's been to Greece, I love the people there. I love the food there. And I love the weather there. So that might be one of my homes away from home in the near future, like maybe next year. Because there's a lot of work to do in Greece. Mount Athos is a mount full of men, and the last time a woman journalist went there, she went missing. So yeah, I need to get more familiar with Spanish and Greek is going to be like hard. I think, I don't even know if I can remember how to say anything. I think number 1 is Enya. I don't know. I can't remember. I know Enya is a letter or a number. See, I'm just terrible. I had to write it down phonetically so I could say the 1 through 10. So I know how to say you are beautiful in Farsi, Makbul Esti. And I'm going to leave you with that, you guys. You are just fabulous. Thanks for sticking with me. And go like and follow Rice Crypto. Also, go watch that video with Christopher James. Christopher James is going to be in Calgary tomorrow on the 14th at 6 p.m. I don't know the actual address, so go follow his page, warriorcalls.com, warriorcalls.com. He's also on YouTube as a Warrior Calls. He's our Canadian muscles in the common law. He knows where it's at. So I'm wishing you light and love from my being to your being, and I want you guys to just stay happy, healthy, full of light and love, and really, I embrace all of you, even the trolls. Seriously, I'm going to have nothing but comedy from trolls one day. Seriously, I'm going to read all the comebacks that I've done. And I've lost a few followers because some people will go and put stupid things on, like, go have another bomb. And then I'll just drop some a-hole comment on them because I've had enough of them, and then they'll get all butthurt. Literally, don't start it if you don't want the attention. That's all I got to say. If you're sitting here through this long, these are my comebacks for people who have trolled after 2 hours and 50 minutes, okay? You have to wonder, what would make you sit through this video so long? How bored are you? A, are you not getting enough sex? B, or, and then you troll on me? That's why you're so angry and butthurt? Are you watching Nancy Pelosi blow drying her hair and getting off to it? Do you have Dicky-Doo disease, Any of these things. You must not be getting enough attention in your life. You've got to go out and troll on people. So I welcome trolls sometimes because I think it's funny. I'm not going to lie. I don't take it personally. I just think it's room for me to use my comedic karma back on people. It's not that I wish them any ill will, but if you're going to call me a jerk, I'm certainly not going to stand by and put up with that. And by the way, my community guidelines on my post about my grandfather being in concentration camp did not meet Facebook standards. So go figure. So we all know where it's at. So I'm just going to say, I love every single one of you. I cannot tell you enough how grateful I am for all my friends that literally, I talk to these women that are just fucking brilliant. And they're like, what about this? What about this? Well, why don't you ask him this? Why don't you ask him this? Or find out this, find out that. And it's only through these conversations. You guys need to find like-minded friends. If you're not having these conversations on a regular basis, you should be every day, because it just wakes up more of your pineal gland. And yeah, I'm just wishing everybody light and love for the beautiful rest of your Sunday. This is a long one because you can just all stew on it on Facebook and say, oh, that girl, whatever, blah, blah. And yeah, just have a fabulous day. I appreciate you. I am grateful. I am grateful for all of the knowledge that you share with me, all of the links that you share with me. And I want to say something to all of you, and I bet you never even thought about doing this. I want you to go look in the mirror and say, listen, Linda, listen. This is what my friend Mel and I do all the time. Her name's Melinda, and she took me to a friend Linda's house, and Linda was not nice to me. So listen, Linda is even funnier to me. So we always talk on the phone. This is how we talk. Listen, Linda. You are beautiful. You are smart. You have learned enough information in this year to last you 45 lifetimes. You are here rewriting history with the rest of the truthers. You are here embracing the darkness in light and love. And I am so grateful to be alive in this time. You guys need to do this mirror work a lot. It will help you process and keep looking at yourselves like an empty vessel. This is the peace sign, by the way. It's been upside down our whole life. Yep, upside down our whole life, where we're receiving. So let's all receive in light, love, and abundance, and bring it into our thoughts from our head to our hearts, and be at one with the connector at least 20 to 30 minutes a day. and just keep spreading your truths. I cannot be more grateful. Literally, I love you guys all. So anybody who wanted to hear Raven's story, you got a lot of it. Somebody wants to put it in a book, go right on ahead. But I'm not going to be doing that anytime soon. Anyhow, I love you guys all. And I'm going to start introducing some of my other favorite friends that are in my circle from time to time. And I might even create a new little side channel, as this one's gotten blocked. So I'll do that when I have a new VPN, and then I'll tell you guys all the name. But stay tuned on redpillraven.com, because all the information about the party will be there. And the other day on Facebook, I have 17,171 followers. That equals 17. I don't know how much more lucky I can get. And at the same time, I had 2,222 friends. Yep. Life is good. So I wish you guys all light and love, and have a great day, this fabulous Sunday or Sunday night. And thank you. Let's send our love and prayers to Australia. They're still struggling. There's a reason you're supposed to be in your house staying safe. They're doing the last roundup of all these scumbags, and it feels very oppressive. But anyone who comes into your face, just keep saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. It doesn't matter. Like, seriously, just keep saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. It's the only way. Love, 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 love is what's going to win this. Love, 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 and light. Light and love, everybody. Enjoy your journey, and happy days.